Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting video here at Playing Board Games. Today I'm going to be talking about Edge of the Earth and how impactful this expansion of player cards is for a new player. Notably, I did this already with the Dunwich Legacy, and someone in those comments said, hey, instead of doing this in standard traditional Dunwich, Carcosa, Forgotten Age order, why don't you do something like Edge of the Earth first, because it's the set that new players are most likely to jump in because it was the first big box that came out in the new format. And I thought that was a pretty good idea. And why do I do things in order? Because I've always done things in order, so why don't we try to change that and do things out of order? So that's why we're doing this here today with Edge of the Earth. Notably, I should probably get a slideshow for all of you guys too, so you can see what cards I'm talking about. But notably, this is going to be a very interesting card evaluation video, because I am talking about all these cards with only the core set, the revised core set in mind. So we're not going to be talking about, like, oh, this card works really well if you, like, with this cycle and all that. I'm talking about if you just bought revised core and you were looking for what expansion pack do I buy next, this is what the entire conversation for this video is about. So yes, this card, for example, that I actually have below me is a great example. Geared Up, I think, is a very powerful card in the right deck for it. It's also a little bit janky, but it can be really powerful. However, when you just have the revised core, this card is practically unplayable. So that is kind of like the intention for this. So while this might not be a long form, growing evaluation of how this card is going to work in your binder going forward, what it's going to do is it's going to just give you like some sort of idea for how these cards are going to impact yourself immediately. Notably, I'm not going to be talking about the Investigators, because Investigators are always impactful for a player card collection. They just mean more things to play about. As always, part 2, I highly recommend buying the Investigator starter decks first. You should always go core and then the Investigator starter decks, in my opinion, if you want to upgrade your player card collection. In a perfect world, my upgrade path, if I had to recommend, is core, starter decks, and a campaign. Like, that would be like, if your budget can afford it, that's kind of the way you want to do it, and then start worrying about there. However, if you're going with just we're talking about just the revised core and Edge of the Earth here, so why don't we dive in, because this is not going to be a short video. They never are with me. They never are. So these are our 5 metrics for how we're going to be grading these cards. Will make an immediate impact. This is going to be a card that you're going to be playing, you're going to want to play and pull out of your binder immediately, and it's going to be very good, and it's going to be very impactful, and you're going to love playing it. Strong option for most decks means that while the card's going to be strong, it might not be able to put out the same results that this will make an immediate impact does. Good card, good deck start filler. This is kind of just like the card will do fine. But it's not going to do anything too crazy, but it's going to be nice. And also, honestly, when you have a small collection, just having good cards to fill slots in your deck is going to be a really nice thing. We have Won't Move the Needle, but playable. These are cards that are not going to be super impressive, but you won't be upset if they have to be your 26th to 30th card in your decks. And then Won't Leave the Binder. These ones are not going to make an impact at all in your starter collection. So, I already started with Geared Up. I think this card is very playable. But I am going to put this one here in Won't Leave the Binder. I don't like the format for how these ones look. I don't see the name of the card, which is a little bit of a bummer, but what can you do? But yeah, so the problem with Geared Up is that you're just not going to have the items to take advantage of it, right? You're just not. In your starter collection, you're going to have, if you're the Guardian, like maybe you're rolling banks, so you're going to have a weapon, magnifying glass, maybe a few things from this cycle, and then after that, it's kind of like, what do I do? Like, what else do I have? This one will grow, and actually I think for the majority of these permanents that we're going to see here, they're going to grow as you get your collection bigger. But when you're just starting, that shit ain't going to leave the binder. Toe-to-toe, however, is going to make an immediate impact. This card might seem scary, right? Where you're taking damage, you're getting attacked. So the enemy's going to deal its damage and horror to you. But You also then just get to deal 2 damage to the enemy. Additionally, because it's automatically successful, you can also commit cards, meaning you can put in things like a Vicious Blow to automatically kill a 3 health enemy without any sort of strings attached. This is a very powerful card that I think it's one of the best level 0 cards. I play it all the time. It's a very, very, very powerful card for you to play. You're going to notice the impact of it like immediately. And you're going to love having it in there and doing things with it. Notably, before we get even deeper into this, Edge of the Earth is a very strong player card expansion. I am very curious to see how it functions when we have the full, like with a full collection. Edge of the Earth has a lot of impactful cards. I am very curious to see how this whole tier list looks once we're through the whole thing. Get behind me. Get behind me. Until the end of the phase, whenever an enemy would attack another investigator location, it attacks you instead, then engages you. Cancel 1 horror dealt for each attack made this way. Alright, I'm just thinking on this. Because, again, it's hard for me to, like, subtract an entire collection, right? I feel like this card is a good deck slot filler. It has relevant icons, like the Brain and a Guardian I think is a really nice option for you to have. And I don't think there's anything like, I think you'll always be happy with it if you have it. I don't think it's particularly flashy, but it's definitely above this. I think that this card will have a noticeable thing here, right? Like, what this does is you use this as just, like, as a free engage action, right? Notably, you're not, like, the attack can be a little bit bad, but you do have Guard Dog in the core set, right? So, like, there is that you can take advantage of. And you also, this cycle does come with Daniela Reyes, and these 2 cards in particular are very good with Daniela Reyes. Who would have thought? Gang Up. For each different class among cards you control, you get +1 fist and deal +1 damage with this attack. This is a fight. 3 cost, 1 experience. So these synergy cards, likewise with the permanents, are going to get better as your collection gets bigger. However, with that said, what do you need to make this card playable? So, if you do not know, because this is your first time watching this, or like knowing anything about Edge of the Earth, there is a whole suite of cards that are multi-class, which means that this Gang Up might be easier to trigger with just the Edge of the Earth. So if we think about that, what do you need? Do you need like 3 different classes to make this playable, right? So, like, if you have Guardian, you have Seeker. Oh, no, you have, like, Survivor with Ice Pick. You could make something work for each different class, because then you get +3 and you deal 3 damage. No, you deal +3 damage. You deal 4 damage with 3 of them. That actually does seem pretty good. I'm going to put this in the good one as well. I think this is a good card. I don't think it's a strong option because you kind of need to work about it, but I think this card actually will be, especially considering the cycle of cards that this comes with. I think that this actually will be a good card for your collection. All right, Sweeping Kick. Yes, you overmeddled is right. This is one of my favorite cards. It still is today. I do play it a little bit less just because I've played it a million times. What the frick was Spotify just downloading on my phone? This card will also make an immediate impact. So, the nice thing about these cards, about Sweeping Kick and Toe-to-Toe, and even in a way Gang Up, is that these are good options to also have enemy management in your deck. Your deck becomes better when you are not relying on finding only your weapons to fight. When you also have events that can deal damage and can fight, it's kind of like having one-use weapons in your deck that you can use if you haven't found your weapon, or if your weapon isn't efficient enough in the current moment that you need to use it in. So that's why like Toe-to-Toe and Sweeping Kick are so good. These are very powerful kill spells, and they are very good at what they do. Defensive Stance. While defensive stances in your hand are committed to a skill test, it gains fist icons equal to your foot and foot icons equal to your fist. I think that this is also just a good card, good deck slot filler. I don't think it's a strong option for most decks, but I think that like to me, like a strong option needs to do more than pass a test, right? I think that's a pretty fair assessment of a card, right? I think for a card to be considered strong, in my mind, it needs to do something more than pass a test. However, just passing a test is good, right? Like, it is good. This being allowed to use your fist to maybe not take as much damage from a grasping hands as Roland Banks is a really nice thing. And also just like being able to just like maybe just get like a higher number when attacking a boss is also really good. So I think this is also just like a good deck slot. Okay, Butterfly Swords. Action, fight. You get +1 fist with this attack. After this attack, you may exhaust Butterfly Swords to fight, and again, adding your foot to your skill value for this attack. This attack deals +1 damage. My only argument against Instance is how many Investigators and Core and Edge of the Earth get value from it. Any of them. Because it's like a defensive card, right? That's the thing. It's called Defensive Stance, so it's a defensive card. It's you're not like you're using it to protect yourself in the Mythos phase, right? And if you need to, you can get it to get over a bump in a boss, right? Because even just like Roland getting 3 turns him into 5, right? And then there's also Lily. So I think like it's going to be a good card for what you need to do. Getting rid of a locked door, exactly, right? Like there's a lot of use cases for Defensive Stance that makes it a good enough card. You can fist that too, but no, but you can get a bigger boost, right? Like Roland is going to have some hard time getting through a locked door. Daniela can get through a locked door, but she's still only up 1. Like having more ways to do that is also just still really nice, right? Butterfly Swords, yes. This card, so I don't think this weapon is that good in the grand scheme of things. I think like the upgraded version is good, the level 5 version once we get to it, but I think this level 2 version is kind of poopy. Because you're spending 2 experience to get 1 3 damage attack a turn. Which in theory is probably good enough, so I'm just like kind of... You can play it in skids too. I know someone is probably thinking it right now. You can play it in skids. I think I'm going to put this in the won't move the needle but is playable. Mostly because the reality is that Machete's better. Machete's better. And honestly, people are not going to like me saying this. But for 2 experience, I think I'd rather just play Knife. Like, the only reason I want to play Butterfly Swords is to get ready for my level 5 version, right? I think the level 5 version, we'll get to that when we get there, but this level 2 version, unfortunately, its output is not good enough. So, like, that's kind of... and it takes up 2 hand slots, so you like have to be fighting with just this. I do think the card is better as you get more stuff to work with it, but I think if you're coming at just with the core set and you can't like take advantage of Butterfly Swords with different things, it's gonna go a bit slower than you want, I think. Doge. No, I can't say that. Not after not with what's happening with the Department of Government Efficiency. We should call this actually Dodge, huh? Fast. Play when an enemy attacks an investigator at your location. Cancel the attack, then test foot 1. If you succeed, deal 1 damage to that enemy. So this is an upgraded version of the Dodge that's in your deck. So the awkward part of this card, and it's actually honestly still kind of awkwardly true today, is there's not really a Guardian who can take advantage of it. Like, you could play this in Skids, but then you're playing limited collection Skids, and like that doesn't seem like a great time, you know? I don't even like playing Skids with a full collection. I think, honestly, I'm going to put this card in the won't move the needle. It won't move the needle, but it is playable, mostly just because the level 0 version is just going to do better, and you can spend that 2 XP on other things instead. Right? So that's kind of like where Dodge 2 is kind of lacking, right? That just only the level 0 version is just going to do it. It's just going to do better for you, and you can spend that XP elsewhere. Because XP is pretty tight. Unless you're playing Edge of the Earth, there's good XP, like if you also bought the campaign with this. But like, assuming you're just playing Knight of the Zealot, XP is going to be a lot tighter. So some of these, even these 5 experience cards, are going to be a little bit harder. But again, I always recommend a campaign first. So if you buy like Edge of the Earth with a campaign, you'll get more experience in that to actually be able to make use of it better. Excuse me. Combat training. Level 0, 3 experience. Sorry, no, it's 3 experience and it costs 0, not level 0. Fast, play limit 1 composer in play. You get +1 fist, +1 foot. Non-direct damage and horror must be assigned to combat training before it can be assigned to your Investigator card. Spend a resource, you get +1 fist or +1 foot for the skill test. Okay, these are interesting. Because I think they're good cards. But how much do they impact in a small collection? Like, are you actually going to want to spend experience on this? Or are you going to buy Sweeping Kick, Fang of Tir-Thra on the hunt, right? You know, like, Chad, don't get me wrong. I love these cards too. It's just a matter of how impactful are they for a small collection, right? And I think you're right, Gurik, and also Delir, and also Astute. They're hard to keep in play because the soak value is a little bit less. I think people would play them, so I'm gonna put them in the won't move the needle, but still playable. And I think for that reason, it's gonna be harder to keep them alive. I think, honestly, the Guardian one, and unfortunately the Seeker one, are probably the easiest ones to keep in play, right? But the Seeker one, no one's gonna play that shoot, you know? I'm gonna put this, I think like this, you might find the spot for it, but I think it's gonna not do too much in the grand scheme of things. On the Hunt 3, fast, play when you draw an encounter card. It's a 0 cost. Instead, search the encounter deck for an enemy spawn and engage with you. Attach it to it, and when you defeat the attached enemy, gain 3 resources. I think this is gonna be a strong option for most of your decks. In Guardian, in a limited environment, when you just have core, and the just have core and like Edge of the Earth, you're not going to have as many economy options, and this is going to be a very nice tool to give you some economy options. The downside is that it costs 3 experience. The further downside is that you also have Emergency Cash 2 in your deck. So that's why I'm going to be putting it in a strong option, because I think that I would rather honestly spend 2 experience for eCash 2. But it is, yeah, no, it is a good one to fetch XP enemies. However, those are fewer and farther between in current Arkham. Like when you just have done it, yeah, they don't do that as much anymore. But that is a great point. It can pull out one of those things. Cool card though. I think it's a very nice card, very strong card. Fang of Tir-Thra. Fight. Choose an enemy at any revealed location as a target of this attack. Before resolving this attack, you may move to that enemy's location, add your foot to your fist with this attack, and deal +3 damage. Now, you might be thinking, this is probably going to go up with Sweeping Kick. And the answer to that is no. It's a good card, but it's not going to live up in the Sweeping Kick tier. And the reason for that is Sweeping Kick is 1 experience, and it costs like what? 1? It costs like nothing, right? It's like practically free. This is too expensive on both sides of things, which is a little bit tough. However, with that said, in a small collection, this is just going to basically delete an enemy. So I do think that this is going to be in this good card, good deck slot filler. Buying one of these will probably win you the campaign at a certain point. Like, yeah, I think it's a lot of damage, and you're practically going to pass it. And this is also something that I was actually just talking to Bryn about, where the burden of knowledge actually makes you worse at ARKHAM. I was talking to Bryn, this is during his tier list video that's coming out on Christmas, where we did our blind run of Dunwich. Bryn played Jenny Barnes with Double or Nothing and Fire Axe, right? And if you told us that today, we would be like, that's crazy. Why would anyone do that? But I was watching it, and Bryn was constantly like dealing with enemies as Jenny. So it's the same reason why blind plays usually are so successful, is because you don't have the burden of knowledge holding you back. So with that said, I think that Fang of Tirthra is going to be a perfect card when you do not have that burden of knowledge, when you can just actually kill things that show up, and like for example, everyone knows what happens halfway through the Devourer below. This can be a card that you can hold for that, and then just immediately delete one of those problems when they show up, right? So like that's one of the things where, to me, why it's good is because it's going to work, especially when you do not have the burden of knowledge being like, it costs 3 experience, or it costs 4 experience, it costs 3 resources. Like, is it worth it enough? And I think the answer is yes. Yes, I think it is. All right, Butterfly Sword's 5. Fight, you get +2 fists for this attack. You may fight again, add in your foot. If both attacks are successful, you may exhaust Butterfly Swords to have the second attack deal +1 damage. So the nice thing about this one in comparison to the other one is that even when you exhaust it, so you basically get one 3 damage attack, but then you get 2 damage attacks out of it. Is that worth 4 or 5 experience? That's another question. I think I'm going to put this one in the good deck card. I do think the reality, though, is that Machete is still going to just outperform it. But I still think the card is good. All right, Forced Learning. Increase your deck size by 15. During the each upkeep phase, instead of drawing 1 card, draw 2 cards and discard 1 of them. All right, we got a little problem here. We have a limited collection. Do you know what makes a limited collection even harder? When you have to make your deck bigger. I'm going to put this in the Won't Leave the Binder one. Like, spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure every one of the permanents are going to be in the Won't Leave the Binder for this one, just because they are cards that scale as your collection scales. And I don't think these ones are good right now. All right, I'm not going to talk about, I mean, it should be obvious. I mean, the biggest reason is that, like, not even, like, looking at any other deck. Like, not looking at anything else on this card, but just increasing your deck size by 15 with a limited collection is a good way to lose Arkham Horror. So, and then, like, not even mentioning the fact that this is going to make you draw your weaknesses quicker and deadlier. And, like, then, like, you know, it's going to kill more of your draws. I don't know. It's not good. It's just not good. Jeremiah Kirby. Okay, so there's going to be something keeping this guy out of will make an immediate impact. And I think we all know who that is. Should I get a picture of it? Do I have that saved up here? Yes, I do. This was a picture I made when Jeremiah Kirby was first tabooed. Because he was tabooed to be was it 2 experience or 3 experience? But man, freaking Dr. Malone Christopher is very good. However, do we need as much economy as we do in our decks? The answer is probably no. In like the seeker things, I'm gonna still put him in strong option. Like, I think that there is reasons you would want to play him. Card draw in a small collection is actually better than resources, right? You know what? I just convinced myself. I'm gonna put him up here. Like, if he comes in and draws 3 cards, that's probably a better rate than you can get with Dr. Milan. I'm going to put this guy up here. I think I was actually kind of crazy to put him not there. Yes, Dr. Milan is probably going to see more play, but again, I'm looking at that burden of knowledge, right? And I think if I remove the knowledge of what Dr. Milan does when you get things like higher education, we don't have higher education right now, right? We have just Jeremiah Kirby education right now, and card draw is one of those things. So yeah, I'm going to put a medium impact. Don't worry about building around him. Don't worry about making your entire deck odd or even. Just say what you need. Like, remember your key cards. Like, maybe in anticipation, look at your deck list, look at your costs, and write down like the critical odds and the critical evens. And if you haven't seen one of the ones you're missing, try to hit that with Jeremiah Kirby, you know? But yeah. I think that there is a good use case for both him and Milan in a small collection. I hate talking about research cards in these videos. I hate it. I freaking hate it. Okay, so you have to research this one. You have a limit 1 per deck. Luckily, you have Research Librarian, so it's going to be easy for you to dig out. Unfortunately, that does not transfer into the upgraded versions because the designers just want to frick around with you, I guess. But won't move the needle, but playable because you need it to upgrade. I'm going to do that for all of these untranslated ones because they actually don't do anything on their own, right? They're only here to be upgraded into their other version. We'll talk about them when we get to them, which you can see kind of coming in down here at the bottom. All right. Stardog, you are my you tempt me so much. Fast. Play during your turn, discard the top card of your deck. If that card is a weakness, shuffle it back into your deck. Otherwise, for the remainder of the turn, while that card is in your discard pile, committed to each eligible skill test you perform. Written in the stars. I think this card won't move the needle, but is playable, right? Man, this is a good set. This is crazy. So, the thing about Written in the Stars is you kind of just can fire it off. Yeah, it's playable in Norman, but I mean, like, I've played this card legitimately in high skill investigators. I don't think you have that many. But at the same time, if you're looking at filling out your deck, like, if you're looking for that 29th and 30th card in a limited... Like, I think, chat, a lot of us forget what it's like to build a deck with only 2 cycles. Or 1 cycle, right? And sometimes you just need a card that has a wild icon that maybe lets you use a perception 3 times if you're lucky. I'm gonna put this in Won't Move the Needle, but playable. It is playable. And Norman, it's obviously better, but like if you were playing this in Daisy because you have to, go for it. So I think that like it's actually a playable card there. It's not good. Like, it's not good, but you can play it and you won't be upset about playing it. Hiking boots. Limit 1 footwear per investigator. It's 1 experience, 2 costs. You get +1 foot. After the last clue is discovered from your location, exhaust hiking boots. Move to connect location with at least 1 clue or to a connecting unrevealed location. I think this is a good card. It's a good deck slot filler. You have what? You don't have good options for playing this. Like, you have Monterey Jack, which is fine. But, like, the reason is, like, you're not playing this card to do anything exciting. You're just playing it to get free moves from it occasionally. And it's a fine one of, so it's going to be a good card, good deck slot filler. So it's one of those things that, that's really, like if you put this in Daisy, you get like that foot boost, which is nice for the Mythos phase, and if you ever need to panic evade an enemy, which will probably happen in a limited collection at least once in a campaign. But also just like being able to just get a free move 4 or 5 times in a scenario is really nice. Join the caravan. 5 cost, 1 experience. Fast, play only during your turn. Reduce the cost of this card by 1 for each different class among cards you control. Move to any revealed location. Okay. So if we think about this, we do not have... So the upgraded cards that were put into the revised core were Old Book of Lore and Seeking Answers 2, I believe, right? So if you're playing this with just through Knight of the Zealot, it's not going to do much. If you're playing this in Edge of the Earth, that's a nice effect. Again, we're going to assume that you can get 3 with this, right? Let's say you're Daisy, you have a Mystic card in play, and you have, like, I don't know, let's again, motherfucking Ice Pick. Or even Eon Chart, right? That's really good in Daisy. Eon Charts. Divination. Shortcut is not core, Shortcut is Dunwich. So, like, that's why I'm kind of, like, thinking about this. Movement is really good. The only problem is it's really expensive. Costing 2 to move anywhere? That's a great question. Let's go before about what we use our Milan money for. How about this? Yes, we could. We could. That is a good consideration for this as well. I think it's going to live in a similar place as Gang Up. I think the effect is good, and if you can get it cheap, it's going to be really nice as well. How much would I want to pay for this effect generally? I mean, probably 3. It's fast as well, right? So, like, you save a lot on there. I think it's going to be a good card. I don't think it's a strong option, but I think it's a good card still. Survey the area. Well, survey the areas in your hand or commit it to a skill card against book icons equal to your foot, and foot icons equal to your book. So this is like defensive stance. Notably, Seekers are more scared of book tests than Guardians are, because foot tests usually do damage, but foot tests also kind of just do anything too, right? I mean, a lot of the Mythos, like a lot of the tests in the Mythos phase just kind of do anything, but foot tests are generally damage, and brain tests are generally horror. That's kind of just how it goes. I think likewise with defensive stance, I'm going to just put this one in the good card and good deck slot filler. You're not really excited to see it. However, when you do, you're kind of like, and it works, you're like, oh, wow, that actually did something. I think, unlike defensive stance, adding a bunch to your book test is going to matter less just with the cards that we have in the core set, which are, say it with me, everyone, Dr. Milan. Say it with me, everyone, Magnifying Glass, right? Like, our book is already innately going to be so high, especially considering we also have, like, Norman Withers. I mean, Norman Withers can't play this. And Daisy Walker, and I know Monterey Jack as well, but he doesn't really care too much. His foot's already so high. Yeah, I think like playing this in Daisy for like when you get like that, you get into that final scenario and you got like 1 experience or 2 experience on the one before, we're gonna go like that. I think it's a good card, good deck slot filler. Medical Texts, the upgraded version. As an action, choose an investigate location and test Book 2. If you succeed, heal 1 damage for that investigator, 2 damage instead if you succeed by 2 or more. If you fail, you must either exhaust medical text or deal 1 damage to that investigator. I'm going to be real. I don't think this card should leave your binder. While I do think it is better than Medical Text 0, which is not hard, mind you, I do not think you should get into the bad habit of taking healing cards that are not efficient. Especially when this cycle already has some very efficient healing cards in it. So we're going to put that in the won't leave the binder. Healing started to get good around this cycle. So we're not going to play the bad healing card. We're going to play the good healing card. It does slot nicely into Daisy, but do you know what also slots nicely into Daisy? Her already existing Old Book of Lore, the upgraded Old Book of Lore that comes in the revised core, because that helps you win the game as opposed to not lose the game, which medical text does. You want your healing to be reactive, not active, unless the rate at which it is active is better than the healing that reactive horror brings, right? We're going to talk about this more for like bandages when we get to it, and also Earthly Serenity. But unfortunately, medical text does not do it. It just does not. Alright, Unearth the Ancients. 0 cost, 2 experience. Investigate. Choose up to 2 secret assets in your hand, then the difficulty of the skill test is equal to the combined cost of the chosen assets. If you succeed, put the chosen assets into play one at a time. For each relic asset put into play by this ability, draw 1 card. So notably, your economy isn't that great when you just come out of the core set with Edge of the Earth in the Seeker class. Like, Seeker economy is very good on the resource side of things. It's definitely worth it on like the resource side of the things. It gets better when you see like Burning the Midnight Oil and Crack the Case, but those don't exist in this conversation. So having a way to save on your resources is really nice. And Dr. Milan also might be able to pop off with this. Jeremiah Kirby. Dr. Milan even just usurped what my brain was trying to think of of Jeremiah Kirby. He just did it again. So the downside of this card is that there's not going to be enough relics to do the bottom half of this card. The upside, though, is that we actually don't care about that. This being able to save on... You're basically saving 2 actions and a bunch of resources on this. So I don't like effects like this, but that's a personal thing. If I put my bias aside, I do think Unearth the Ancients is a pretty playable card. How playable is it just in the core environment, though? So we have our magnifying glasses, which are cheap anyway. I mean, and cheap and fast. They don't cost an action. We have our hiking boots. The problem is that most of the cheap stuff fast, right?
Fatality.
Hey, Pineapple. Thank you so much for the Prime sub. Thank you for your Bezos bucks. Welcome to the Golden Table. It's a pleasure to have you. So I think this card gets better as you get more. So when this card improves, what are you looking for how to improve it? I am going to put this, I think, into the won't move the needle but playable. Oh, man, I don't know. So, like, what are we looking for how to improve this? Better book, icons like help, right?
Fatality.
Hey, Real Games TV, thank you for the Prime. And we also have a... Oh, here, let me just mute this before the train comes in. Because the train is loud. There we go. So, like, you're looking for, like, a higher book score, and you're looking for... relics is a good thing, but again, we don't worry about relics. We're just worrying about, like, things we're going to be putting into play. And, like, where is Eon Chart in this cycle? If you play, like, 1 Eon Chart... And, like... I'm just trying to think of that other asset. I'm stuck on this one, because I just can't think of another thing to play. What are the assets in the core set? Disc of Zamna? I mean, you can play Relic Hunter in the revised core. I think I am going to put this in the won't move the needle but playable. I think I'm happy with where this exists here. But I do think that as you get more in your collection, this is going to slowly creep up. Because I think just right now we're missing the 2 to play that doesn't require also playing a fast card. Because if you're playing a fast card, yes, you save the resource, but that doesn't really seem worth 2 experience for me. So I think that's the thing kind of holding it back. Because again, it's like the thing, like you save money on the assets, but you have to get your book high enough for it to work. And like with Daisy, you're at 6. With Monterey Jack, you're at 5. If you have like one of your allies in play. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put this here. I want to use fast cards with this. No, I wouldn't either. But like that's the thing. Most of our cheap options right now are fast. Because our book doesn't get high enough. That's kind of like the sticking point, right? Because our book doesn't get like... We can't make it as high as we can because we don't have a full collection. We can make it relatively high. But... Notably, you can also commit the cards you're doing with this, which certainly helps. But then you lose them if you fail. Scientific Theory. This is the one like this... Talent Composure over here. I think, though, if I'm being honest with all of y'all, I think this one won't leave the binder. I think the card is good, but I don't think you're going to have an Investigator to play it with. At the very least, not in this cycle. If Roland Banks could play it, like when we get to Mr. Michael Lee down over here, that would be a whole other story. But because Roland Banks cannot play it, we're going to have to put this in the won't leave the binder. And the reason why is just that no one's using these 2 icons, so why spend the experience on it, right? Okay. I hate talking about research cards. I actually hate talking about research cards. So the order is customizable and then research on an analysis standpoint. And then I don't like talking about the mystic cards, like the mystic spells, just because I'm bored of them. Alright, this one is the Gateway to Tyndalos. Move one leyline from this asset to a non-elite enemy. Notably, I will say, if we go back to the unresearched version, because it's hard to talk about these in context without also talking about their unresearched version. This one's a little bit hard to get, unless you're playing Research Librarian, but as stated, Research Librarian doesn't actually trigger with finding these ones in the future, so it kind of becomes like a little bit of a little poop soup situation. Alright, move one ley line from this asset to a non-elite enemy. It comes with 4 ley lines. They all do, I believe. And you can all move a ley line to something. As an action, choose an Investigator and an enemy with a ley line at a revealed location. That Investigator moves to that location. You may remove that ley line to deal 1 damage to that enemy. So who plays this in our cycle that we have here? Daisy and Monterey? Man, them not being tomes, even though there's a book on the cover. Dang. I'm going to be honest, I think most of these are going to be unplayable in a small collection. I don't even think they're like that great. I agree with that. That it's not nothing. 4 Tesla's damage is not nothing. But it's more it's the campaigns are just not great for it with what we have, right? Again, I'm kind of assuming that you bought Edge of the Earth campaign with it in these thoughts, right? All right, I'm going to look at all of them. Let's look at them all, because then we can kind of, like, gauge between them. And we can see if there's one that's, like, an actual standout. Choose an Investigator. So this is move ley lines to a revealed location. Choose an Investigator and a revealed location with a ley line. That Investigator moves to that location. You may remove that ley line to have them take an investigate action. Okay, I think this one is fine. The Gateway to ARKHAM. I think this one is better than the other one. Which might sound crazy, because, again, when we have the full knowledge, Tesla's damage is really good. But, like, when you have a small collection, you as the Seeker, you kind of need to be getting the clues, right? Aldebaran. Move a ley line to an asset to a non-elite enemy. Choose an enemy, an Investigator engages with an enemy with a ley line. That Investigator disengages that enemy and moves to a connection location. You may remove that ley line to automatically evade that enemy. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Ugh. That one's not great. And then we got Paradise. This is the one that chat says is good. So let's see if it's good in a limited collection. So you move it to an Investigator. Choose an Investigator with a ley line. That Investigator draws 1 card and heals 1 damage or 1 horror. You may remove that ley line to have them instead draw 2 cards and heal 2 damage or 2 horror. Paradise is good support. It is. It is. So it really scales the number of players you have. I wouldn't play it below... I mean, I probably wouldn't play this below 4 with a limited collection. Okay, let's do this. Let's go back. So I do think that the enemy one is going to actually live in the won't leave the binder. I do not think it's worth it. I do not think you should play it. I do not think you should. The evade enemy, also, this one should not leave the binder. Do not play it. It is not good. I do think that this Gateway to ARKHAM is... I think it's good. I think it's a good card. I would play this in Monterey. I'd play this in Daisy. Because even if you're like only moving 2 locations, it's like worth it, right? You don't need to investigate. If you're moving 2 and investigating, you're getting like 3 actions out of it. Well, 2, you're up 2, right? And then the Paradise one. Oh, no, sorry, that's the evade one. I was like reading that again. I was like, wait, this one's not good. She's an Investigator with a ley line. I think I'm going to put this one in won't move the needle, but is playable. And the reason for that is mostly I do think that healing is better sorted in this cycle. So like if you're looking to support heal, you can't see the mouse. I'm going over these. I think that there's better options that exist already in this cycle. So I think that's kind of the reason for it. Again, I think that this one probably scales really nicely as you get more for the healing one. But the thing that makes it so slow is I think translating it is really tough. And again, if it stayed a tome, so like you could still find it with your research librarian, because there's still only 1 ofs, right? That also really hurts it. Yeah. And also, why spend 4 experience? Why spend 4 experience on that when you can just get Prophesy Profana, right? Notably, these are all talking about without the taboo list. We're not talking about taboo lists here, because this is for a limited collection. And you're a maniac if you tell someone to play with a taboo list when they've only played 1 campaign. You're legitimately a maniac, and you might deserve to be in prison. But we're here with the Prophesy Profana. While you're not at the Locus, you get +1 book and +1 foot, and you may ignore attacks of opportunity. After it enters play, choose a reveal location. That location is the Locus until the Prophesy Profana leaves play. And as an action, move any low investigator to the Locus. Yo, this shit's gonna make an immediate impact. This card's like busted. It's really good. It's really good with all the investigators that can play it in the collection, assuming you get Edge of the Earth and Daisy from core. If you do buy the Investigator starter decks, Harvey Walters is also going to love to hold this in his hand slot. It's a very powerful card. Ignoring attacks of opportunity. It's pretty good, it turns out. It's also very easy to be away from the Locus, right? In like every campaign, there's going to be a location that you're going to like, once it's revealed, you'll be like, I'm never going to go back here, right? And that's really nice. Think about grabbing it for Daisy, my Carcosa run. It'll do very good for you. It will do very good for you in that run if you do. Underworld support is another one of the permanents. Limit 1 per deck. Limit 1, purchase a deck creation. Your deck cannot include more than 1 copy of each non-weakness, non-signature card by title. Reduce your deck size by 5. So I think that this card is only starting to get good with the card pool we have. We only have enough redundancy at this point where I think it's starting to get good, where I don't like shake my head in confusion if someone brings this in a random deck, right? It gets so much worse when you do not have the card pool that it is today. So we're going to put this one in that won't leave the binder. Do not play it. Scout ahead. Move up to 3 times. Enemies not engaged during this movement. I think that this is going to be a strong option for most decks in a starting collection. It's just damn good. I think this one's a funny one because I think Scout ahead actually gets worse the more you have in your collection, but I do think that it's a good thing when you have a very limited collection. 21 or bust. This is a very fun economy card. You're exchanging reliability for burst resource potential, sorry. You are going to reveal tokens one at a time until you choose to stop. You're basically playing blackjack with the Mythos bag, where each skull, cultist, tablet, and squid are 5s. Autofail is 10. The elder sign is either a 1 or an 11. And if the combined value of those is, tokens, ignoring plus minus, is 18 or less, you gain 4. 19 gain 5. 20 gain 6. 21 gain 9. It's pretty easy to get 20. It's pretty easy to get 20. So the hard part about recommending this card... is it's not reliable economy, right? The upside about this card is that it's very good economy when we don't have economy, you know? I think I'm going to put in a good card. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's a strong option. It's very fun, though. It's a very fun card, and you will enjoy it. But the thing is, because it's so unreliable, it's hard to give it like a glowing recommendation because of that. So, yeah. Yeah, it's an example of what Beard is saying in chat. Playing my brothers last week, drew the autofill after hitting 12, but on the other hand, hit 21 exactly the session before that. So, like, that's kind of 21 or bust. You can't rely on it as economy, but it can be economy. Counter Espionage. This is a 2-cost, 1 experience event. Fast, play when you draw a non-weakness treachery. Cancel the card's revelation effect and draw the top card in the counter deck. As a reaction, when you play Counter Espionage, increases cost by 2 to change the counter deck to your deck. When you play Counter Espionage, increases cost by 2 to change you to any Investigator. So don't worry about that bottom text. This is pretty much just for you as a rogue, where you can spend 4 to draw a card from your deck instead of the Mythos deck. That's kind of like what we're looking at with this card as its floor. And who plays this? Skids and Bob in our situation in this weird thing we have. And this card certainly gets better when you have better economy. I'm gonna put this in. What do you, I mean, the rogues are tough, right? Like, rogues. So I think, like, if you want to play a rogue Investigator, like, if rogue is, like, you're deciding this is the class for me, I recommend more than anything else to buy the Winifred Havemuck starter deck. I think she was the Investigator. It was, like, her and Guardian are, I think, the two that got the biggest boon from their starter decks. So, like, if you like Rogue, you really need to pick it up, because otherwise, like, Rogues were very rough for a very long time. I think at this point now they are very strong. I think I'm going to put this in the won't move the needle, but it is playable. You can run it as like as a panic button if you need to, but 4 resources is a lot when the economy isn't where it is with everything else. And it's kind of a shame because we actually have a lot of economy cards that we're going to be talking about. So I think like with a limited collection, so like that's the problem with Rogue and why Rogue is so powerful today, right? Rogue is the combo class, right? Like they care about comboing a bunch of cards together and getting extreme value because of that. But the problem is you need a lot of cards to get that combo going, right? From usually different cycles. When you do, the combo is insane and can outpace most other things, just like outvalue those things, right? Unfortunately, this isn't one of those things. Yeah, so I'm going to put it there. I think it's fine, but I don't think it's not gonna. Yeah, I can definitely see you playing it, but I don't think it's gonna do anything too crazy. Cheat the system. 0 cost, 1 experience, fast play during any lightning bolt window. Gain 1 resource for each different class among cards you control. Again, we're looking at this 3 of fast. E-cash is probably pretty good, right? Eon chart. Janae. This. Blur, I think is playable too. This is probably pretty easy to get to 3, right? Even if it's just 2, it's pretty good. I probably wouldn't play it at 2. I think I would need to get at least an E-cash out of it for me to want to put 1 experience in. Because then I would recommend, because the reason why I wouldn't play it as 2 is that eCash 2 I'm pretty sure came out in revised core. So like I would rather just go for the card and the resources for 1 more experience than having to like build around it otherwise. So the reason I think this card is very strong, but the reason why I'm going to put it in the good card, good deck slot filler is mostly just because strong option for most decks can't really imply when you need to kind of build around cheat the system a bit, right? So like that's kind of what's keeping it here for me at this point. I do think it's very good, and I think that it's going to actually scale pretty nicely even if you just get like 1 more investigator to play it with. But strong option for most decks implies that I'll put this in most of my rogue decks, and I probably won't. For some reason, my brain took a while to understand the flavor text and cheat the system just now. If you weren't supposed to do it, it wouldn't be legal. Well, that's because there's like... it's like a double negative. So if I was supposed to do it, it would be legal if I were... It is a little bit fricked up. Untimely transaction. I'm not even reading this fucking card. It hasn't left my binder. It hasn't left my binder with a full collection, so why is it going to leave your binder with a limited collection? Now let's read what the card does. Reveal an item asset in your hand. Another investigator location may play that asset as if it was in their hand. If they do, draw 1 card and gain resources equal to that asset's printed cost. Okay, this might leave your binder because it's fun, right? But it shouldn't. Because Arkham is not about fun. Arkham is about winning. No. Like, if you do, it's like, it is a fun card to, like, do things you're not supposed to with. But I think ultimately with a small collection, there isn't too much to really, like, you know, like, make it work with, right? Do I think it'll scale better when you get more? No. So I think also the thing that kind of kills Untimely Transaction is that Bob is from this cycle, and Bob's permanent basically does this, like a signature. So it's one of those things that it feels a little bit lacking because of that. So I'm going to put that one here. Savant, gain wild icons equal to your lowest skill other than the skill being tested. I do legitimately think that this is going to make an immediate impact. I think that this card is going to just give you some support that you really feel like you're craving if you're going to play Skids or Bob. Just some like really good icons to like for tests. It's a very good skill. I'll put it in most of my Seekers today. Well, actually, that's a lie. I probably don't because I'm too reckless for my own good. I don't even put allies in my decks anymore for like soaking. I don't know. Something's happened to me, chat. I have to see, is it in my Finn deck that I'm playing through Forgotten Age right now? Did I at least put it there? I did. Okay, I did put it in my Finn deck, so at least I'm still good enough to put it there. But yeah, in Rogues, it's a very nice card. Especially if you start getting more once they start, like... The thing about Skids is that Skids should have had one brain from the start, right? Skids should have been like a 1-3-4-4 Investigator from the start. Unfortunately, they were rightfully at the moment putting him as a 2-3-3-4. But I think in hindsight, it would have been much better for him in the long term if he was a 1-3-4-4. When rogues start getting one brains, as you start getting new cards, Savant is going to be that much better, and it's just going to improve as you get more cards as well. The red clock. Ooh, the reveal's going to be in a half hour. We'll pause the video to check out the card when that happens. 2 cost, 2 experience. I mean, unless they're streaming, in which case I'll just keep going and put my nose to the grindstone and figure it out. After turn begins, either place 1 charge here or take all damage here as resources. Then, if it has exactly 1 charge, you get +3 skill value for your next skill test. 2 charges, you may move it to 2 times. 3 charges, you may take an additional action this turn. So this is interesting, right? Because I think we all know that Red Clock 5 is very good, right? We know that it's a very good card. But how much, in a limited collection, how much tempo can you sacrifice not improving your deck to get there in a limited collection, right? That is the question of the video. And I actually think in a limited collection, Red Clock 2 is probably better than Red Clock 5. Because with this one, you only need to spend 4 experience. So I'm going to put this one in strong option for most decks, right? Oh, dude, it's going to feel so weird if I do need to put it down lower. Because, like, the reality is that you could get the red clock. Like, you could get the red clock for experience, and then you start saving and maybe picking up, like, savants on the way, right? You know what? I should add another tier and just put it's complicated. I do think that Red Clock 2 is going to be where you're going to play most of this in a limited collection, and when you get more, like when you get more, it's going to be one of those things that you're going to be able to get it better. I feel like it's like wrong that I just don't know where to put Red Clock 5 with these metrics, right? I just don't know what to fucking do with it. Yeah, we need the Avril Lavigne tier. Alright, but I think Red Clock 2 is a strong option for most decks. We're going to get about Red Clock 5, and we're going to talk about it there. It's a slot filler? Okay, that's kind of where I'm leaning to, Stone Cold Stunfisk. So I'm with you. Okay, we could probably put it in good card, good deck slot filler. It still feels fucked up, though, doesn't it, to put it there? It feels like I'm committing a crime. But, you know, we wouldn't... It was like, if it weren't where it's illegal, we would do it. You know, it's whatever was on that flavor text for that card. Money Talks. 2 experience, fast play, an investigator, any location initiates a skill test. Instead of the skill type indicated for this test. This test is a resource skill test. The performing investigator base skill for this test is equal to half the number of resources in your resource pool. Draw 1 card. Yeah, we'll put a pin in that Delir Confair because I do think that it is that is an interesting thing to talk about before the XP, and we can look to see what we have here. Because already I see 6 experience that I think would be better spent than going up to the red clock right away. And there's also I think there is I think there's better options in the XP stuff too. Okay, so I was going to say earlier that this money stuff's probably not playable, but I did remember that there is an unscrupulous loan in this set, which is hiding all the way over here. You actually can't even see it. There it is. Hello. So I'm going to put these in the won't move the needle, but I'll put this in the won't move the needle, but is playable because we actually do have money. We actually do have money to get things. I think Black Fan is going to be another interesting thing to talk about here once we get there. Black Market. I think this is going to make an immediate impact as well. So Black Market, 1 cost, 2 experience, fast play at the start of the investigation phase. 1 at a time, reveal cards from at the top of any investigator's decks until exactly 5 have been revealed. Set those cards aside out of play. When set aside, any investigator may play any of those cards as if they were in their hand. At the start of the next investigation phase, shuffle each of those cards, still set aside into their owner's deck. So, funny story about Black Market is that Untimely Transaction, when we first saw these 2 cards, we were like, oh, it's another meme card. But that's not true. Black Market essentially says like the table collectively draws 5, right? So it's not actually drawing 5, right? Because the cards might go away. But collectively at the table, everyone is in tandem drawing 5 cards. And then anyone may play those cards if they are playable. Some things you have to keep in mind. Obviously, skills can't be played. Weaknesses are just going to sit there. But this is a very nice card to help maybe someone catch up if they don't need to. If they're missing something and if no one needs to catch up, you can just use it for pure value. As for the question of what is there to expend your experience on rogues, I already think that, yes, going to Red Clock 10 is possible, but I'm even seeing 6 experience here that I think I would rather put into my deck instead of Red Clock 10, because if you don't draw, if you put your first 10 experience into Red Clock 5, you have 29 other cards that haven't upgraded. So that's the thing, is I feel like going to Red Clock 4 and then if I would buy these, it'd be better, and then maybe I could start saving for Red Clock 10, or I could buy more other stuff as well. So I think I'm kind of convincing myself that I think that with a limited collection, Red Clock 5 needs to be lower. Moxie, you got Moxie, kid. You get +1 brain and +1 foot. It's another composure. Non-direct damage and horror must be assigned to Moxie before it can be assigned to your investigator pool. Spend a resource. I think, like these other ones, I'm going to put in won't move the needle, but is playable. I could see me playing this in Skids and Monterey Jack in a limited collection for sure. It's like physical training, where I'm not excited about it, but I think it is playable. So, I don't want to talk about these composers anymore. They're kind of boring. With a limited collection. I mean, even in a full collection. Unless you're Joe Diamond or Will York, you're never really super impressed by them. You're not I'm so excited to see you. But you're still oh, you're still a workhorse. You're still getting shit done. The Black Fan. 3 cost, 3 experience, but it's exceptional. So it costs 6. While you have 10 plus resources, you get +1 health and +1 sanity. 15, you may take an additional action during your turn. 20 plus, you get +1 to each of your skills. So, in the core set, we have High Roller, right? High Roller is one of the things we could buy. This is a lot of experience for a build that is going to be a little bit shaky until you get more. However, I think that it is playable. Because we also have Unscrupulous Loan. Again, we have Unscrupulous Loan, which I think really changes things, which is also still, hello, I'm Unscrupulous Loan. Yeah. Man, I would do anything if I could just shrink this. Core set is hot streak. Yeah, so there is a hot streak in there. I think it's playable, but I think it requires a lot of work to be playable, so maybe it actually should be in Don't Leave the Binder, but, unfortunately, it's not the way. Okay, and then we have this Red Clock 5. So I do think in a limited collection, Red Clock 2 is better. The nice thing about this is that people, if they just look at this image, they can't tell the difference between these two. So they would need to watch the context of the video. And people who would get mad at me for it are probably going to just assume that this is Red Clock 5 and this is Red Clock 2. And then everything is much better this way. So... oh no, they can see the two icons. Fuck, I'm screwed! No, but I do stand by this. Like, I do think that it is... I think it's probably better to spend... if you want to buy Red Clock, buy the 4 Experience one, buy some other things, and then if you don't want anything else, maybe start saving for Red Clock 5. However, 10 Experience is a lot, and it's one of those things that if you are only putting Red Clock 5 into your deck... if you don't find it, because you also don't have good ways to find it, you're kind of fucked, right? Like, you're kind of just, like, going to be in a bad position. But I do think the good deck slot filler is a nice place for it. In the context of this limited collection, before anyone else yells at me. Okay, down the rabbit hole. I just don't think you have enough upgrades to make it worth it. So I'm going to put this in still won't leave the binder. However, with that said, I think this one is the quickest to leave the binder, right? Unless the next cycle you buy is... unless the next cycle you buy is Path to Carcosa, I think that this one is going to more likely leave the binder first. Yeah. Oh god, Dragon Pole? You have one additional arcane slot. Fight. You get +1 fist with attack for each of your arcane slots that is filled, if at least 2 of your arcane slots are filled. Okay, so we have Scrying, right? You know what? I actually need to look at core set for this, because I push all... I push all... Go away. Asset. Give me Mystic. Give me Scans. So, we have Scrying. We have upgraded Scrying. We have Rite of Seeking. We have Shriveling. In here, you're only playing this in Lily. Oh no. Okay, this shouldn't leave your binder. There's not enough to make it work. I think that this is not it. This is not it. Like, I think that you can build a fun, janky sort of Dragon Pole deck that is going to get the job done. I actually would love to try this in Lily with some, like, reliables slapped on, right? And, like, yeah, there is some great spells once we get into, like, the upgraded stuff. However... I just think that you would rather just play Machete, right? Maybe with In the Thick of It and 2 XP Brand. Yeah, like, I do feel like it could be up here, but I think, unfortunately, this part makes it very hard for me to want to put Dragon Pole in this tier. Because it's playable in the sense that you can spend an action and 3 resources to play it, but you're also missing the economy. You don't have Tabooed Voice of Ra, because we're recommending this untabooed, right? Lily specifically probably runs Machete and Dragon Pole in this card pool. If I was Lily... I mean, I think the reality is that Lily is probably running Dragon Pole, Machete, and Knife in this pool, right? She's probably running a little bit of everything. You know what? It probably should live in this tier. You are right, because it will be playable. But there's like a big asterisk on this one, I think. Like a huge fucking asterisk on this one. If I could, I would. I'd add more context. Because Lily can't run guns. I mean, she does have Sledgehammer at level 0, but even then, like, Sledgehammer is bad at level 0 for Lily. I think, okay, so it shouldn't leave your binder, because I think the card is, like, not going to do great, but I think it's going to have to, so we're going to put it up here. It is technically playable. It's kind of like these, the money stuff, right? Where you need a lot to go with it. Yeah, I think that's fair, because it's like the money stuff. We'll put it there. I'm not happy about it. Do you know what else I'm not happy about? This fucking card. Do not play it. No! Nice try, Meditative Trance. Yeah, where's our It's Complicated tier? Yeah, I wish I could. In retrospect, I like having skids with one brain. I wish, in retrospect, I made an It's Complicated tier. Because there is some that are just like, it needs to be complicated. How'd you have to go and make... Alright. Don't play this card. It's bad. It's just bad. There's better healing in your class that you can play. And you do not need to play this in scenario 1. If you're worried about healing, get some experience and then go from there. Right? Not worth it. Even in a Dragon Pull deck. 2 experience is just not it. I'd love to see a version of this card that was like 2 experience and fast. Sorry, not 2 experience, 2 resources. It's 0 experience. Don't get it twisted. Like, but 2 resources and fast, right? I don't know. It's just in a cycle where we got good healing, it's kind of crazy to still get like the bad healing, you know? Okay. Close the Circle, otherwise known as... There's a few cards that the community loves to yell at me about. Close the Circle. I recently just learned about Underworld support. There's a lot of defenders of Underworld support. And Close the Circle was one of them back in the day. Because I'd always say, I think this card's bad unless you're building around it. And everyone would be like, you're crazy, it's good. And I'm like, have you missed the point here? So notably, this card was not tabooed, but it has been changed in the current rules system. Pre-rule system change, you'd be able to use this on treacheries like Locked Door. You can't do that anymore. And that was not a taboo change, that was a rules change. So, uses 1 charge for each class 1 cards you control. Spend 1 charge and exhaust Close the Circle. Take a basic action. For each skill test performed during that action, you may use your brain instead of the skill indicated for that action. So you can't use this. So basically what changed was the concept of a basic action, right? Basic actions are now, the easiest way to think about it is it does not require like a card unless that card is like investigating the location. But even then, like, I don't even know if investigating, like, I don't know. It's a little bit complicated to get into the minutia. But the idea is that if it requires another card, it's no longer basic, right? Which I think in the long term is a better change for the rule system, right? I think that like it's better like this. Where are my other synergy cards? I have Gang Up and the Move one. I mean, and I do think I have that one up there. I think I'm going to put this in Won't Move the Needle but Playable, because even if you play this in, like, let's just say, for example, Norman Withers. Let's just say, for example, Norman Withers, and you use this card as a Pathfinder. Like, I think that's not terrible. Like, it's just one of those things that, like, if you're basically, like, able to get, like, 3 charges on this, and you can just, like, use it to move 3 times, like, that's not awful, right? It's not awful. I think it's definitely playable. Cue everyone yelling at me again, though. They love Close the Circle. Winds of Power. 2 cost 1 experience. Place 2 charges on an asset you control. As a reaction, after you draw Winds of Power during your turn, play it. I think this one also won't move the needle, but is probably playable. It being 1 experience is really nice. As Astute always says, 1 experience cards are the best, and frankly, I do kind of agree with that more often than not. I think that like 1 experience cards are really nice, especially when you're upgrading, because you can buy like your 4 experience card, and then like if you don't need a 2 experience card, you can buy 2 1 experience cards to just kind of like make your deck just generally better. However, with that said, I think it's like one of those things that, so yeah, it's like one of those things where like I think at this rate, you don't have spell redundancy, but you kind of do, right? Because you're already getting brands. You're already getting 2 brands. In the core set, you also have Shriveling. You have Rite of Seekings, right? You have the Divinations. And like, yeah, the 2 charge on the brand, like it's basically just for your Shriveling then, right? Like, I think at this point, I would rather draw and just play a full spell. So I also think this card kind of goes down in value with a limited collection, because you're not really building around... Early Mystics were kind of always just shoehorned into, like, flex Investigators, right? Because you don't have that redundancy, so you kind of just have to do a little bit of everything. If you have Jacqueline Fine, you will have 6 damage spells, so you actually can just run it and like make it work. And that's when this is probably going to be more playable. But if you're a flex mystic, which you're probably going to be if you just have Edge of the Earth and Core, you're less likely to need it, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put it in the won't move the needle, but is playable. Foresight. Man, these cards are awkward. They're awkward. Fast. Put an investigator location would draw a card from their deck or the encounter deck, name a card. If the drawn card is the named card, the investigator may either cancel the card's effects and discard it, immediately play that card at -2 cost. So the reason why this is awkward is that unless you're playing Scrying or Norman Withers, you're never going to trigger this, right? And, like, that's kind of, I think, like, ugly design, right? And, like, you don't want to play Scrying. Like, if you're doing a Dragon Pole deck and you're going to play Scrying, like, maybe play Foresight. But, I mean, it is playable in Norman, so once again, we're going to put in this won't move the needle, but it's technically playable. It's technically playable. You're going to play this in Norman, and it's actually really good in Norman, right? Yeah. Occult Theory. Well, Occult Theory is in your hand. That committed to a skill test. You gain you get brain icons equal to your book, and book icons equal to your brain. So I actually think this is probably the second best of these. I think I like the Survivor one a lot. Anything that gives brain is really good, right? Any of them that give brain is really nice. So I'm going to put this... I mean, I think it's still just a good card. I don't think it's a strong option, because I think it's on the same tier as all of these ones. So I'm going to put it in here. It's a good card, good deck slot filler. Because, again, I have a hard time putting it in strong option, because it doesn't actually... it doesn't help you actually win. It just helps you not lose, right? And that's like kind of the thing where I'm having that dividing factor for cards like this. This helps you move, which helps you advance like the game state. This gives you resources. We all know these cards are good, right? And I think while these cards are good, it's missing that little oomph to give you like that extra little spice, you know? Parallel Fates. Look at the top 6 cards of Investigator's deck or the Encounter deck. You may either return them to the top of the deck in any order or shuffle them into that deck. If you looked at Investigator's deck, then Investigator may draw a card. Hey, it works with Foresight, but it also is just like a really good card all on its own. So, this card is just it's not a draw 6, right? But it kind of like has that same sort of vibe. It's like a search the top 6, and then like if you like it, you can stack them. If you don't like it, you can shuffle, right? Yeah, it's a Mystic Friends in low places. I think it's absolutely worth to experience. It's like a little bit tougher when you have a smaller collection, but you know what's even better for a smaller collection than like most other things? It's consistency, right? And this gives you some more options for consistency to find the things that you want to get. I think that most Mystics will be happy to play this, and I think they will enjoy resolving it as well, because it's it being 0 cost is also really nice. The Astronomical Atlas. I think this is probably just a good card, right? Because even if you're not getting skill value out of it, it's just card draw, right? It's just like slow card draw. You know what? I'm also going to put this in strong option, I think. Right? I think it's still good. That is fair. It is going to suffer from not being able to curate your deck's icons as properly. But I mean, like, once again, if we just kind of look at Brain. Brain or Book, there's still a good number of them. Brain, Book, Brain Wild, yeah. It is going to suffer a bit, but I still think it is just drip card draw. So I think it's got to be good. So if you don't know, as a Lightning Bolt exhausts Astronomical Atlas, look at the top card of your deck. If it's a weakness, if it is not a weakness, attach your face down to Astronomical Atlas to 5 max cards attached. As a Lightning Bolt, commit a card attached to Astronomical Atlas to an eligible skill test. If it succeeds, add the card to your hand instead of... I mean, I guess what's also super important to keep in mind, while we can't curate our icons, we can commit it to other people's, right? It doesn't need to be just to our tests. Also, hand slots are super uncompetitive at this point, so I think it's a very easy include. Norman Withers can also play Research Librarian. I think this card actually will probably pop off quite a bit in a small collection. I mean, I think it pops off in a big collection too. Yeah. Healing Words. 2 cost, 3 experience, 4 charges. Spend 1 charge, heal 2 damage among investigators at location. Don't mind me just scrolling down. I don't think this should leave your binder. I think you should just not play this card. I think you should just like look at it and be like, whoa. And then like maybe when you get Vincent Lee in the future, you can maybe pull out Healing Words again, because that's kind of like the only place I want to play it. Yep. All right, Grounded. Fast, play level 1 composure and play. You get +1 skill value during skill test on spell cards. Non-direct damage and horror must be assigned to Grounded before it can be assigned to your Investigator card. During a skill test on a spell card, spend 1 resource, you get +1 skill value for this test. Okay. Let me give you some advice as a new player. If you're here and you are like, I want to buy Edge of the Earth. I'm like, I think this is a cool expansion. I think I like the Investigators and I want to see how it's going to go. And I kind of just want to give it a shot and see, right? You should look up the card Arcane Research from the Forgotten Age. It's a permanent card that helps you get spells quicker. It gives you cost trauma, but don't worry about that. And then what you should do is you should get a small piece of paper and write Arcane Research on it. And then you should put that thing in a sleeve and put that into play in your deck and just proxy it until you buy it. Until you buy it one day, then you can start putting it there. Because it's a very important piece of the Mystic pool, and I actually wish they put that into the core set instead of Scrying 3. That should have existed in the core set. It's such a fundamental part of Mystic XP design that, like, I'm looking at Grounded, and I actually think that Grounded is going to be super playable in a limited collection. However, it is hard for you to get that XP, in order to pay for Grounded, because you have to put so much more XP into upgrading your Brand of Cthulhu's, into upgrading your Shrivelings, to upgrading your Rite of Seekings, right? So what you should do is you should just pretend you have Arcane Research until you actually buy it. And then have Arcane Research. So that's my advice to you. Arcane Research definitely should have been in the core set for sure. It's just such a fundamental part of Mystic design. And it would also mean that we would need less... I mean, I do like that XP boosting is like a plus side of the Mystic class. But then we get cards like Down the Rabbit Hole, right? Which are good, but they're bad if you have a limited collection because you don't have as... You're going to be upgrading out of your cards as much, so I think that it's still just not great. So get that Arcane Research and then start doing that instead. With all that, I do actually think that this is probably going to be a good card to play in your decks. I think it's actually going to, like, get the job done. All right, we're nearing the end. We're nearing the end, he said, with 4 rows of cards left. Holy hell. True Magic. Use 1 charge, replenish this charge at the start of each round. You may resolve abilities on spell assets in your hand by revealing them from your hand. Treat True Magic as if it was a real asset. Chad, I don't want to talk about this one too much. It reminds me of Tuesday, and I feel my blood pressure rising. So you can research Librarian this with Norman Withers. The problem is that yeah, this shouldn't leave your binder. I don't think this should leave your binder. It just shouldn't. The problem is that you like your suite of spells. Oh shit! This is the cycle with Cyclopean Hammer. Holy fuck! We're about to also enter like God mode. These cards are all like, for the most part. For the most part, these multi-class cards are very powerful effects. Yeah, so the issue is that, like, once again, we have, like, Brandigathuga and Divination. These don't work well with True Magic. And, yeah, it's very strange that it came out with the cycle of cards that it's just, like, not good in. Like, I understand they don't design just to work within the cycle. Like, the concept of designing these boxes is, like, multifaceted, right? Where... you have to design cards that work with the box, but also are cards that work for players who have the entire collection, right? It's like one of those things that it really can change the evaluation of a card, right? I don't know, yeah, so like in a limited collection it's not great, but like True Magic will like move up here in the future. Like a lot of these things, like this is going to move up, this is going to shoot to the fucking moon, this is going to go up, these probably also go up as well, this is going to go up, this is going to probably go up, and this is going to go up as well, right? So like this Won't Leave the Binder one is very different than the Dunwich one. Yeah, so short supply. When your first turn of the game begins, discard the top 10 cards of your deck. Again, I think like the other ones, this one's going to not leave the binder. You don't really have a way to capitalize on it, and in Wendy Adams, it's actually probably worse. Like, yes, you could do the amulet stuff, but like, what happens if you mill 10 cards, and then the next, like, you draw your weakness, and you just have killed 10 cards, right? Scavenging is not in core? It is, but who's going to use it? Bob? With what book boosts? I guess there is lockpicks in core. That's a good point. Lockpicks is in core. Lockpicks is in core now. And yeah, no way, you're right. No, you're 100% right. I think I'm going to put this in the won't move the needle but playable tier then in that case with a limited collection, because there's really only one thing you can do to take advantage of it. Hey, fuck it. I think it might. I think you're 100% right. I forgot about scavenging because I've played so many scavenging decks, I'm kind of sick of it. Yeah, no, it is probably a good card because we also have the ice picks too, so Yeah. No, it is. No, you're 100% right. I'll take the L on that one for sure. It is. I always forget about scavenging because it's just I roll my fucking eyes at the card, and also I think the taboo has effectively killed it for me. I think you can get better value without needing to spend the 4 experience on scavenging anymore. Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. Because, yeah, so the scavenging, as people were talking about, scavenging card in the core set. We have lockpicks in the core to take advantage of it. And yes, you could also do it with Agnes and Divination, but I think I can't recommend that in good faith. If you like more elaborate, weird combos, that definitely does seem like a pretty fun time. But I do not, so I cannot recommend it here, but it does seem like a good time. And then there's also, like, there is a lot of stuff to scavenge in this cycle, too. This was a very good box for scavenging. No, you're 100% right on that, chat. That's a miss from me, but let's keep going. Schaffner's Catalog. I think this is going to make... I don't think it's going to make an immediate impact. I'm going to put it in strong option for most decks. Mostly because the things that we're going to be spending a lot of our money on is, like, allies and events, I think, to start. Because, like, really in, like, the core set... And, like, when you're just starting, there's less, like, yeah, you have someone's probably going to buy a Cyclopean, right? But then, like, what does that do, right? And it's, like, kind of those things where it's, like, it's going to be better with ice picks and scavenging, like, when you do that kind of thing. But I think, like, the universal, everyone's running, like, 6 items that can take advantage of it, gets better when you get more cards in it. It does help the whole team pay for stuff. It does, but only 3 resources gained from it, right? It's a table emergency cache. I also think people tend to overplay Schaffner's, but that's a whole different conversation. I think Schaffner's as a whole is a good card, but less good than the amount of people who run it. Because it is just an emergency cache, right? That's all it is. It's just a shared emergency cache among the table. And, like, that's nice... But, yeah. I think it's a strong option, but I don't think it's going to be, like... Again, like, this is the thing that always fucking pisses me off. When I put it up here in, like, the second highest tier, and people are like, it should actually probably be up 1 higher. And I'm like, no. It's a really good thing. Yeah. The sharing is what puts it up here. But it's still just, like... It's still 2 resources you have to put a down payment for to get 5 out, so you're really only getting 3. If you're not using it for yourself, you're paying 2 for the 5 for the group, which is fine, right? And yeah, scavenging does make it nicer, but it does help for that. But I don't think it's enough that it's going to be up here. I don't think it's as ubiquitous, right? I don't think it's as ubiquitous as these, because, like, let's just say, for example, you buy Dunwich next. Pete can scavenge, but he's not a great scavenger, right? And he's going to be looking at other things for this. So it's, like, one of those things, I think, like, these are going to, like, things... Like, I get a Guardian Investigator, I'm going to play Sweep and Kick and toe-to-toe in them forever. I mean, Chet, you're making me do that thing that I hate. You're making me do that thing that I hate. When I put it in the second... It's, like, I read it... It's this thing that stuck with me. When I was like, a teenager, I read an article... in a PlayStation Monthly magazine. And it was a letter to the editor where they were like, how could you have given this game a 4 and not a 5? And the editor responded with, I think you need to keep something in mind about scoring metrics, where 4 is a very good score because there's like 2 things that can go above it, right? Which is like, there's 0.5, 0.5, right? So there's 2 points you can go above, 4.5 and 5. But there is 3.5, 3, 2.5, 2, 1.5, 1, 0.5, 0. There are 8 tiers beneath it. So likewise, there are 3 tiers beneath this and only 1 can go, right? So, like, that's the thing that always... People, like... People have to keep in perspective of that kind of thing for these as well, you know? So, like, that's kind of like how it, that's why it always, like, ticks me off when it's like, what do you mean it can't be up in here? Not that you're saying you're doing this, chat, now. This is also for people at home. and putting it into perspective of how I view this thing, where you always just look at what can go above, but you should really be looking at what is below as well to really like look at the metric for how someone grades a card. All right. I think Schaffner's is great, though. Bandages. I think Bandages is better than Schaffner's. I think Bandages is going to make an immediate impact. This is when I was talking earlier in this video, ages ago at this point, about how healing damage, like this is when healing just started to get really good. Just being able to drip healing is a very nice way to just provide some security that you may not have as a team, right? It's one of those things where if you're a new player, you're probably going to be looking at healing, right? You're going to be looking at how do I heal? And you might be looking at stuff that's like, oh, medical texts in the core set, right? Or first aid kit. You can now put those aside and then do positive healing instead. That is actually good. And then also, yes, Beat Cop and Guard Dog are also in the core set. Obviously Beat Cop 2, but also like Guard Dog, being able to like ping enemies down. Like this is basically an Acolyte killer for free with Guard Dog or Beat Cop. Is really nice. The problem with Bandages that only really shines in Daniela here. Did you not hear what we were just talking about? Beat Cop 2 and Guard Dog? Because it also heals from ally assets, right? Very nice for those kind of things. Additionally, because you're also taking the damage, it does trigger off the damage, which is, yeah, what you're saying, Beard, right? Really nice for those. Very nice card. It's going to make an immediate impact. It's very playable. And also can be scavenged, which is really nice. Jury Rig. 0 cost, 3 durability, attached to an item mask controlled by an investigator location. As lightning bolt during a skill test on attached assets. Spend 1 durability. You get +2 skill value for this test. I think this is a good card. Man, Survivor's fucking going hard this cycle. I think this is a good card. I actually use this as a very common 29th and 30th card to this day. It's really nice at level 0. I usually upgrade out of it, but it gives the team, as needed, a little bit of some extra consistency, some overpowers, some perceptions to help beat that first little bump that the first scenario often provides. So we really like that. Bangle of Jinxes. Uses 1 charge. As lightning bolt, spend 1 charge. You get +2 skill value for this test. Limit once per test. After enemy attacks you, you place 1 charge on Bangle of Jinxes. So obviously really good in Daniela, right? Oh no, we're starting to get to that point in the video. Yeah, so obviously really good in Daniela. So the question is, could you play this in other survivors? You probably wouldn't play it in Wendy. I think it's probably going to be won't move the needle but playable. I think this card's going to get better as you get more stuff, right? Because right now, as it is, it's really nice in Daniela. But like, I look at Wendy and I'm like, no. I look at Stella and I'm like, no. Once you get like other people, I think the card is actually really good. Like once you get like Carcosa, I think this is going to like, you're going to be like, oh, I have another home for it. Or like Dream Eaters with Tommy, right? Like, yes, there is the concept of having the Beat Cops. But again, like that's only kind of just Daniela. So I'm going to put in the won't move the needle, but is playable. It's kind of very similar to Foresight in that regard. Burn after reading. Yes, this card will make an immediate impact. You know when I was talking earlier about how these cards don't help you win the game, but they're like very nice defensive options, they help you not lose? This card lets you win the game. And also, at the same time, if the situation is needed, not lose the game at the same time. Which is kind of crazy for one card to do, right? To have you both win the game and not lose the game in one card. It's crazy. Yes, you do need to exile something that is 2 XP or higher. But here's a little hint for you. Until the final scenario, just don't. Right? Like in the final scenario, if you bring Burn After Reading, you can use this to just get rid of a card that you don't want to play, just to get an extra Doom if needed. Or alternatively, just continue to exile level 0 cards. The nice thing about level 0 cards is that if it makes your deck become illegal, you can add cards back in until your deck becomes legal. Level 0 cards for free. You don't need to spend experience if you're doing it to make your deck legal. So yes, as Beard is saying, it works like adaptable. You can actually like kind of like modify your decks. Survivors are always low to the ground in experience, so you can buy Burn After Reading multiple times, but just be aware about the level 2 or higher. Maybe only save that for like the final 2 scenarios or the final scenario. Strength in numbers. I think that this one is probably the worst of the synergy cards just because it does the least. Right? Like, I think it just does the least out of all of these. All the other synergy cards that we've seen so far have a positive impact on the game, right? Like, Close the Circle is kind of tough because the arcane slot's a little bit harder to muster up that space for with a limited collection. But the strength in numbers, I think is just like, it's not going to do too much. Survivors, they survive. They're not too worried about passing tests in the same way other people are. Oh no, strength in numbers isn't so different from Savant or the other 1 XP skills? I think it kind of is. I think it kind of is. Do you want to know why? Like, alright, we can get into why. I got this. So, number 1, unless you're building around it, it's an Unexpected Courage. Unexpected Courage happens to be free. They give them out for level 0s. They want you to just take them from the store. They're falling off the shelves. Number 2, survivors don't care about their brain in the same way rogues care about their brain with Savant. Rogues don't need to work for it with Savant. Savant just happens. With strength and numbers, you need to actually be building around it. If your payoff is just passing 1 test without actually impacting the game or requiring another card to impact the game, it's not worth the slot. It's not worth the work you got to put in. Every other one of these, like, this just does it. This just does it, right? This just does it. They all just do it. This one requires you to actively work to make it happen without actually like giving you something that's exciting to actually do something with. Like, it actually is really comparable here to go with this Dauntless Spirit. Like, Gurik, it's in won't move the needle, but playable. In that one situation, yes, it is playable, right? It's playable. In that one situation with Agnes you're talking, I would not take this in Bob because I could just play Savant. I would not take this in Wendy because Wendy doesn't need it, right? So like in Agnes, it's not going to move the needle, but it's entirely playable. And I think this card's just better. I think this card is also just better. Yeah, you don't need to be right. I'm the only one who's putting this video out. I'm the only one who needs to be right here. And even then, I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong, like we saw with with Short Supply. I do think this card is better than Strength in Numbers just because you don't need to work for it. If I'm going to choose one to play, I'm going to choose Dauntless Spirit because survivors generally have 4 foot, so we don't care about the wild icons. They generally have lower fist, admittedly, but we're doing this just for the brain icons. Wendy's not going to need it, but you know, like everyone else is going to enjoy taking advantage of it. I don't think it's great. I think, like, again, like these are the better ones for this, but I think in a limited collection, to not have to work for your skill icons is a very nice thing that you can have. Unfortunately, I think we're about to get into a stinker here, and blood will have blood. +5, play after an enemy attacks you, max 1 per attack. Damage and horror from this attack cannot be assigned to ally assets. For each point of damage and or horror you took from this attack, draw 1 card. You know, maybe I'm underrating this one just from that. Maybe it is actually slightly better than I'm giving it credit for. Alright, let's think about this. Max 1 per attack. Damage and horror from this attack cannot be assigned to ally assets. For each point of damage, horror you took from this, draw 1 card. So let's just treat this as like a reverse I've had worse, right? Or yeah. So, like, we're not canceling anything, but we're drawing cards. The reality is most of the time this is going to draw you 2 cards, so it's really only drawing you 1 card. You can also soak it on other things, right? Astute, you're 100% right on that. I think it's playable. If you put this in a Daniela deck in a limited collection, it's probably going to do something. But I think, like, as you get more... Blood will have teddy bears. Blood will have my fancy leather coat. As you get more cards, I think that this is going to drop down. Like, once you get, like, more card draw on Survivor, which does exist. I see a lot of people say it doesn't exist. Do you want to know what the best card draw is? You want to know what the best card draw is? Just taking basic actions. That's the best card draw. Just taking basic actions to investigate. Just investigate the game, win the game. Like, advance the game, that's the best card draw. But we're not ready for that masterclass yet. 2 XP and 1 resource for card draw, it's yuck. I do agree it's kind of yuck, but, like, I do think it is playable. I don't think it's great playable, but I think, like, in a small collection with Daniela, because the thing is, like, again, this kind of falls into Bengal of Jinxes and Foresight. With Daniela, you're also probably killing an enemy here, right? Like, you're probably, like, also killing the enemy. So, like, it's kind of like a really shitty glory until you can, like, get glory. And then it's going to drop out. Or if you just want to run 4 copies of glory in your Daniela deck, right? It is very strange. It really should cost 0. I think, for the whole thing. But, again, I don't know. I do think it's playable, but it's like a very asterisk close to the end of unplayable playable. Mostly, once again, Daniela is doing the heavy lifting. You could, in a limited collection, while upgrading, you're probably going to put one of these in Daniela. Fire Extinguisher. I think that this is going to be a strong option for most decks. Now, notably, it's not going to be immediately a strong option for most decks. However, it is going to get better very quickly as soon as you get, like, another survivor that wants to fight. This was a very big moment for survivors to just get a machete. Oh, that sounds so funny to fucking say, but it's very true, right? Like, it's very true. It was a huge moment for the survivor class to get a machete that they could just play. The bottom option is also very good. Do not sleep on it. You do not need to exile it for it to be good. Just a mass evade is probably sometimes enough to get you out of a bind or win you a scenario. But man, it actually makes me really sad just of how much it changed. Just how much it changed that they just gave Survivor a machete, but it really was important for, like, the spikier side of Survivor. I think Survivor weapon design has gotten more interesting in the most recent ones. But it was a very helpful thing for the Spike Survivor design to have that as an option. But yeah, it's going to be a strong option for your decks. Not the strongest weapon that we're going to see in this cycle, but it is very good. All right, we got Plucky. Where are the other composures? We have this one here. We have Grounded up here. Moxie is down here. I mean, I think that the Survivor one's probably one of the best ones you can get in a limited collection, just because, like, Survivors scavenge, right? And while you can't scavenge this back, you can like scavenge. It makes your scavenging better. Notably, like, this is, like, probably, like, really good in Wendy. Daniela's she's not gonna be playing this card. She might, if you're, like, you need the experience, right? Like, just having some extra horror soak could be good in Daniela. Actually, Daniela might play it. You're not using the book, though. You're using the brain, but it's mostly just, like, I think that this is going to be a good card in the future for survivors, especially if you are scavenging. And it's 0-3 experience. Again, survivors also view experience differently. Like, it's one of those things that which I think is like one of the coolest parts of this game. The design between classes and how it can change, and just seeing how experience matters so much differently compared to mystics and rogues versus survivors. It's really cool. Fend off. Fast. Play when an non-elite enemy spawns your location. That enemy attacks you, then automatically evade that enemy and attach fend off to it. Attached enemy cannot ready. 2 cost 3 experience. So it's pretty expensive, especially like now in the current game. Seekers just get to do this at 0 XP. But these effects shouldn't be something you sleep on. However, because of the experience cost, we're going to be putting this up in the won't move the needle, but is technically playable. I think this is actually a really good effect, and I think this card is actually kind of slept on, but it's slept on in the way that like locking down enemies might be the new future, and they might be giving us too many tools to do it. Like, I kind of want to play like a lockdown Daryl Simmons deck. This is too advanced for this video. But I kind of want to play like a Daryl deck that's goal is to just like lock down every enemy on the board and then just like look at all of them and be like, I control you. Because we're getting a lot of pieces for that pie. So, you know, like, let's just keep getting more of it. So like this card is like, it's just like a little like warning sign on this one. There's a little symbol being like, this might become a problem in the future. Okay. We are finally out of all of the class cards, and we're at 2 hours into this video. I told you this was not going to be a short one. We have all these other exciting things to talk about, and we're going to start with Medical Student. Medical Student is going to make an immediate impact. I think Medical Student is probably one of the best level 0 cards that we've gotten in a very long time. She is just very good. After she enters play, you're going to heal 1 damage, 1 horror for an investigator ally at your location, and then she soaks for 1 and 1. This is really nice for a neutral card that we're going to be talking about in the near future. If you've played with these cards before, you'll know which one I'm talking about. But she's also just like a really good ally if you're not doing like a set and forget ally style of play. And even if you are, sometimes having an extra ally that you can play before then or after then can still be really good. Medical Student is just very, very efficient. On the trail, choose an enemy at any location other than yours. Either move twice towards that enemy or discover one clue in an empty location between you and the chosen enemy along the shortest path to reach that enemy. Ooh, Gloria has been spoiled. I'm going to do on the trail, and then I'll pause the video and we'll check her out. This one, I think again, it's a 1 experience card. It won't move the needle, but I think is entirely playable. The upgraded version does get a little bit better, right? Where you can like grab some more clues, but I think funnily enough, it's actually less playable. Like it's better, but I think it's like less good. Any empty location between you and the chosen enemy. Yeah, like, just like being able to discover 1 clue, testless, can be really nice. This one forcing you to move makes it a little bit more problematic to, like, figure out the best time to do something with it. So, I think I'm going to... Man, this is crazy. I think I might have this one. I mean, it has great icons because they knew the card was a little bit awkward. It has really good icons. But, like, they knew it wasn't going to be super playable. I think I'm going to actually put this one and won't leave the binder. I think this one is, like, playable, and I think this one is, unfortunately, not. Okay, Gloria's pretty sweet. Eric and I will talk about her in an upcoming video. All right, Michael Lee. You get +1 book and +1 fist. And you successfully investigate, +1 resource for Michael Lee as evidence. When you initiate an attack, exhaust Michael Lee and spend 1 evidence. You deal +1 damage to the attack. He costs 5 experience. He's going to be a good card, but unfortunately, him being 5 experience makes it a little bit harder to run him all the time. Obviously, we love him in Roland Banks. And then as you get more people, more Guardians, they'll also probably consider loving Michael Lee. So it's, I think he's going to just be a good card. I think like he will also move the needle. He's actually like very playable, so he's going to go out of that. But him being a strong option for most decks because he's kind of limited on his XP cost, and even just like, I mean, with Roland, it's very nice. With Roland, it's very nice. I'd also could see him playing him in Lily as well, because Lily can get into him. So that is a really nice thing. Not the best ally we're going to get in the deck, and they should have had their XP swapped from the get-go, but what can you do? Snipe. During the next fight action you perform this turn using a ranged or firearm asset, treat each skull, cultist, tablet, squid, or autofill token you reveal as a 0 token. This action does not provoke taps of our opportunity. I really like test security cards, right? Like, I really like the design of them. This does work with shotgun, admittedly, but the issue with a card like Snipe is that I do not think it is a double action to ensure your fight works. Is not like a good enough rate. Yes, like it costing an action to do it is not great. Or if, for example, it was like when you take an action with a firearm asset, it's like you can play this, but it costs like a resource or even 2, right? I think like that would be probably just 1 resource, like that, and maybe like 2 experience. Like I think like it's one of those things where it's unfortunate that I think it's just like it's a little bit too slow. Brad, 79 months. Or it should give 1+1 damage. I agree. It's just like a little bit too much. Will you play it? If you're playing shotguns, I think you would. I'm trying to think of where I put it. Is there a firearm asset in this? Oh no. Oh no, there is. So it's basically just shotgun, right? I think, unfortunately, this... I think I'm going to put this in Won't Leave the Binder. You might do it with shotgun. 40, yeah, there's 45 automatic, but I don't think that's the sauce. I don't think it's that's the sauce. I would rather, like, if I had to choose to put a 1 XP card in my deck, I'm just gonna take Sweeping Kick, baby. Like, I'd rather play toe-to-toe than Snipe for my damage, to just ensure I get damage. So I think, like, this could leave the binder for shotgun, but I'm not gonna reward Snipe with enough to get there. Old Shotgun. Yo, this won't leave the binder. Oh, dude. Rogue Guardian got a little bit fricked up this cycle. Because there's also Quick Draw Holster, which I'm also going to put in Won't Leave the Binder. I'm sorry, I just have to. I have to. I think they're fun cards to build around. Like, I think all of these are fun cards to build around, but I have to be true to the name of this series, which is... which is just no. It can't. It can't! Like, you can't do it without, like, these are like build-arounds, and we do not have the pieces to build around. I don't understand Old Shotgun, not gonna lie. Old Shotgun gets a lot better when you have assets that you can, like, events that play assets, or events that, like, reload assets. Like, you have extra ammunition in Old Shotgun, but it's still just not the way. Like, what you really want to do is an example of, like, Will York. If you kill someone with an event, like Toe-to-Toe, and you play this from your discard pile, it's, you are doing it while playing an event, right? That's how that works. Like, York can play these cards when he's killing, right? Yeah. I think it's a very cool card, and I think it's a very fun card, but it's a card that gets much better when you have more stuff to take advantage of it. Quick Draw Holster, same kind of thing, but I don't think it's good. I think it gets, like, better when you have more, but I don't think Quick Draw Holster has ever been, like, too great. I think it's just, like, a little bit too overcosted, right? Like, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. It being 4 cost and 4 experience, like, that is a lot, even in a full collection. So it's, like, a little bit hard to warrant. Friend of mine thought Quick Draw ignores ammo cost. Is your friend the person who had an argument with me in my comments on this about this card ages ago? Because it's happened before. I've seen it happen. It's just like a big investment. Hopefully Marion gets a level 1-handed gun for the holster. Ah, yeah, that would be sick. So, like, I'm hoping... This was also my prediction, that we get, like, no melee weapons in Drowned City. I would love it if we just got firearms. Like I said, maybe, like, a trawler's hook. Like a fish hook for Marion, because she has it in one of her arts. But I would love it if we just got no melee weapons. I think that would be really cool. Just guns, baby. All right. Brand of Cthugha. Brand of Cthugha is going to make an immediate impact. I'm also going to just quickly hop. We're going to just skip Nikosi for right now. And Nikosi's not looking too good. And I'm going to put this other Brand of Cthugha up here as well. So, Brand of Cthugha. The reason why this card is so impactful is it gives you another spell asset in which you can use, so you can start actually being a more focused Mystic Fighter as opposed to the Mystic Flex that I'm implying that a small collection kind of forces you down the rabbit hole of doing. Brand is really good as well because you actually don't have to spend charges unless you succeed, which is really nice. It's one of those things where the downside of shriveling, especially at lower player counts, is that if you miss, you feel it. You've wasted one of your... It's like same with firearms and all that, but like in a lower player count, there's also the machete to back it up. Mystics don't have a machete that they can just fight with, right? Brand of Cthugha means that no matter what, you have 9 damage or 6 damage on this card. This is damage that if you take all the tests and you spend all the charges, that is a guaranteed amount of damage that you have that you're able to, like, use. Shriveling, you can't say the same for that. Well, yes, it's unlikely to fail your shriveling. Like, auto-fails still exist. Auto-fails still suck with the Brand of Cthugha, but not having to spend the charges is really nice. This isn't even talking about the Guardian side of things, where this has kind of just become the Guardian gun. It's basically a gun for the Guardian class. While I do think that these spells are kind of a whiff in the design side of things, I do think that they are very powerful cards to play with. All right, now let's look at Nikosi. After Nikosi enters play, name a non-Elder Sign Chaos token with a symbol. Until this card leaves play, the name symbol is your sigil. When Investigate location reveals a cultist, tablet, or squid, exhaust them, search Chaos Bag for your sigil and reveal it instead. Can I, be real? No, I didn't say that because I disagree with the ruling. I follow the ruling, but I think the ruling that you don't deal the damage is stupid. Like dealing the 1 damage, I don't like that. Sam, I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Is there a reason to play Nikosi in this limited collection? Because I can't see it. I think he's just like, don't leave the binder fodder, right? He doesn't actually do anything in this cycle. Like, I guess you can name Frost token if you're playing the campaign. So this guy just can't leave the binder, unfortunately. I'm curious how the can't leave the binder is compared to Dunwich. I'm definitely going to check that out before the end of this video because I'm very curious. I think I have it on my Patreon page, which you should go support, by the way. Help me drink more coffee. I don't even drink coffee, though. Came out early to say, oh my god, that was ages ago. How do I search post? Well, here we go. We'll look at that after. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Sucks for Nikosi, but I mean, like, even I think in a full I think you really need like I remember there's I said like this is for Jim, and that's always kind of the joke when anything revolves around skulls, but I think this guy's actually really good for Bless. So once you get like Innsmouth and Hemlock in addition to this, I think you'll start noticing a bigger use case for Mr. Nikosi Mabadi. All right. Cyclopean Hammer. Yo, this will also make an immediate impact, and that impact is the sound of the Cyclopean Hammer crushing a ghoul's skull to fucking mush. This card is insane. It costs 5 experience, but, like, that's good. And it's, like, worth 5 experience. It is a very, very powerful card. It is very expensive for a limited collection, but like it's going to do it. Things you need to be aware of with the Cyclopean Hammer. If you get Crypt Shield with it, you're going to cry. So you need to have some sort of security. And this is kind of where like the kind of more advanced level of ARKHAM play comes, where you look at what's in your Mythos deck and you know what to expect. I don't expect you to be able to do this on blind plays because it's no fun to do that. I don't. But like one of those things with Cyclopean Hammer where just know that there are treacheries that are going to make you discard things. So you maybe want to build up to your Cyclopean Hammer before just putting it out there and potentially losing it. Very strong card. Best weapon in the game, except for maybe Runic Axe. There's an argument both ways. Sledgehammer. I think the level 0 version is a won't move the needle but playable. The double action is good. The top action is good in Daniela. Yeah, discount Cyclopean Hammer. Yes, a non-magic Cyclopean Hammer. One thing that I really like is that the Survivor level 0 weapons, since Sledgehammer, have seemed to fall into this idea where you get a double action for 3 damage, but it's like inefficient. We saw that with Pitchfork, and I really enjoyed the design for those. I think it's a very good place for level 0 Survivor weapons. The upgraded version, which we're going to get to before we get to the fire gear or whatever that's called, protective gear or something. I think that this one is good. I think it's a good card. I think it's a good weapon. It has the machete thing, but it also has the payoff of being a really awesome boss killer, which is actually pretty fine for you to work with because already in this cycle, like say for example you're rolling banks, we have On the Hunt, right? Also like for boss battles, you can just whack it a few times, maybe get whacked, and then or like sweep and kick it down, and then next turn get ready to just hit the thing. I think Sledgehammer is a really good design for a weapon because it has a very fun payoff that does deal a lot of damage, but in a way that is like super exciting. Because if you think about it, like you're doing like this sniping this in the same box. Why do you hate us, FFG? Yeah, sometimes they like to fuck with us for sure. But yeah, you're doing the same amount of damage with the top and the bottom action, but only making 1 token pull is a lot better than making 3 token pulls if you're looking to do that kind of thing. All right, protective gear. I think it's fine. I think it won't move the needle, but playable. I think it's nice as an option for Daniela to not take, to have some soak in her kit if you upgrade. And honestly, like even like if you're feeling a little bit bad for rolling banks and you want to like not play like your accessory slot is full, so you can't play the Elder Sign, you could play protective gear instead. I don't think it's great. Like, I don't think it's great, but I do think it is a playable card, which is going to fit in the won't move the needle, but playable category because that's why that category exists. Yes, it is a good point, too, about the hazard treacheries. I think there are a good number of them in certain campaigns, but it's not going to be for all of them. So you kind of just have to come into terms with the fact that you're probably playing this for the soak as opposed to the ability, but it is only 2 experience, right? Like it's actually super cheap experience-wise for a good number of soak. It's expensive resource cost-wise. I'm not going to beat around the bush and pretend it isn't, but it is pretty good there. Okay. Pocket Telescope. This card does kind of break the game in ways, but you're not going to see that. With that said, I think this card won't move the needle, but is playable. You can exhaust it to look at the revealed side of a connecting revealed location. As an action, you can investigate. Investigate revealed connecting location as if you were there. Honestly, that bottom text actually might be more relevant than you think, but this card doesn't give you any boosts. And again, I think this card can break certain scenarios, but when you're just starting out, you won't really know. There is a really nice thing in, Beard is right, for Devourer Below, where you can use it to snipe. There's certain locations that might be bad, so you can at least like get some intel before you move in. Again, though, it competes with a magnifying glass, which just helps you win the game, so it's kind of tough to see. But that is a good home for it for sure. Eon Chart 1. During your turn, exhaust Eon Chart, spend a secret, choose and take one of the following actions: move, evade, or investigate. 3 secrets. I think that this is going to be a strong option for most decks that are going to run it. I think that it's a very, very nice card. It also works with scavenging. So like Wendy Adams can potentially take advantage of it with all the other stuff we talked about previously. And it's a great card. Yeah, it's just a really, really nice card. There's also an upgraded version, which we're going to touch on. There's a little demon lurking between the cards. I don't like how they're formatted like this, but what can you do? The upgraded version has 3 secret still, 4 experience, but you're going to take 2 of the following actions. I honestly think the 2 are pretty comparable. I do think that like the level 4 version is generally stronger, right? Because it's just like you get to do 2 of the actions. But I think because they have to be different, it can be a little bit awkward. And I actually find that unless you're like going... I feel like if you put the whole campaign with just the Eon chart levels, like the level 1 version, you'll probably still get out of it pretty okay. And going up to this one will make you better, but it's not like a must upgrade, I think. I think they're kind of like on the same tier for me personally. They get better as well when you get more cards, but I think they're both just like really, really strong cards. Do I think they're going to make an immediate impact? No. No. Honestly, I would totally buy a red clock argument here of putting the 4 below the 1. I could see it, but I do think that is also just like pretty good. Because to me, like the Seeker side makes it a little bit shinier, right? Like the Seeker side makes it a little bit shinier. So I'm putting them on the same because I think they're very similar. So the reason why I think they're like, I mean, that's not this video. I think they're very strong cards. Very strong cards. No, sorry, Janae, we have to talk about you. This lady's going to make an immediate impact. This lady's insane. 5 cost, 3 experience. You get +1 book and +1 foot. During your turn, after you move to location Exhaustion a Beauregard, move a clue or a non-elite enemy from a connecting location to your location or vice versa. Do you know what's really powerful? Enemy management, where you don't need to kill the enemy and you can just like move it around like it's some sort of like your master hand, just picking up Captain Falcon and moving them to a different battle zone to fight in, right? Like those are very powerful effects. And you also get +1 book and +1 foot. I don't know what the frick happened where Janae was 3 and Michael Lee was 5. Like, I don't know how that made it through in that state. Because that's just like frickin' nutters. Michael won the bet? Yeah, no, that's fair. They flipped a coin, yeah. The other thing, too, is that while the enemy management is very good, it is one of those things where you can also move clues off of victory locations. Like, say you're next to, you're on a 4-shroud location that has victory, and there's 1 clue left on it, but next to it is a 1-shroud location. And you could just be like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to move and then take that clue with me. Who would have thought? Who would have thought something like that would be problematic? Especially when you add an Eon chart and you can move for free. And you basically just grab that clue for free. It's creating a little bit fricked up. A little bit fricked up. Alright. Divination. So I do not think these cards are as good as Brandon Gathuga, but I still think they are very good cards. At least on sort of the mystic side of things. Like, I think on the Seeker side, unless you're building around it and doing something crazy, it's not that great. But I think on the Mystic side, these are very nice cards. I mean, honestly, just because, once again, Mystic, I'm going to put them both in strong option for most decks, just again because of the Mystic class. They're like Brandon Gathuga, where you are getting... you are guaranteeing 6 or 4 clues. And it is a little bit tough. Like, it is tough because like they're not as good as Rite of Seeking, right? Like that is really what it comes down. I convinced myself, and Gurk maybe helped in chat. With a small card pool, every playable spell matters. When you get more, like say for example you had the Jacqueline Fine deck, I think that these would be down a tier, right? But if you don't, and all you have is Rite of Seeking to get clues, more things to get clues is going to help you win the game faster. So they're going to be strong options there. Protecting the Anurnic. Man, it was really crazy. I just remember because this card was spoiled, and I remember I was like, it was the elections in our city, and we have a riding. They recently changed the riding names, and they changed one to a Nurnik, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, because of the indigenous communities, which I thought was really cool. Because I was like, oh, and then I got to learn how to say it, which was really neat. I think this card's cool. I think it's probably not too great with a small collection. But, like, turning a dead, what's it's called, Arcane Initiate into 3 cards is probably good. I think I'll put this in Won't Move the Needle, but I think the effect is entirely playable. I think it's a really nice card for that kind of thing. Protects Dr. Milan. It does protect Dr. Milan, or it turns your first Dr. Milan into 3 more cards, so you can play the other Dr. Milan that's been in your hand the whole time. Very good with Medical Student. Very good. I mean, it's going to scale really nice when you get some things, because there's Medical Student, and then there's also Arcane Initiate in the core set, and then there's also Sled Dogs, who we're going to get to. All right. Professor William Webb. Roland could use it with Beat Cop, too. I actually kind of dig that. Roland could even use it with Guard Dog. I think, you know what? Predicted Nurnix, actually, you know what? I'm going to put it in good card. I think you convinced me. I think it's actually a good card. I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with it here. And in a small collection, I think you're going to feel it even more. I think you convinced me. Professor William Webb. Uses 3 secrets when you successfully investigate, exhaust him, and spend 1 secret instead of discovering a clue location. Either choose an item card in your discard pile and add to your hand, or discover a clue at a connecting location. So I think that this guy is pretty unplayable until we get into the level 2 version, when he just becomes like another like scavenging that you can play. The only problem is that scavenging is very good, and this is like not one of those things. I'm gonna put the level 0 and Won't Move the Needle, but is playable. And I'm going to put the other guy, the upgraded version, into the good card, good deck slot filler tier. Because I think he's a good card. But I think the reality is that if you are in these classes, you probably want to run Dr. Milan and Scavenging, or like Lockpicks and Scavenging, as opposed to him. And even like Leo DeLuca to just get more value. But yeah. I think that the level 2 version is actually like pretty good. Okay. And we also have the Ice Picks. These are very good cards. The level 1 version, Fast, earn a skill test while investigating, exhaust Ice Picks. While fighting or investigating, you get +1 skill value. I think that this card is... I think it's a good card. Like, having a hand slot to get +1 once is, like, fine. It's not great. But, like, you can play it in, like, Wendy. But it's mostly going to be holding the zone for Ice Pick 3. Which now, I'm surprised I made it up to good. Yeah, because it gives you +1. It gives you +1. That's fine. Like, that'll get the job done. It's a good deck slot filler, right? It gives you the +1 to get there. You can scavenge it back if you discard it. You can put it back into play, right? Yeah, and in the absence of Ritual Candles, Agnes finds it okay. Yep. Like, I think there's enough uses that moves it above playable. I think it's actually actively good. However, the upgraded version is now you can discard it to deal extra damage or discover additional clues. Obviously, this gets better with, like, Scavenging, but I still think on its own, a way to get additional clues or damage on command is a worthy card in a small collection. Because, again, like, while you might not be looping it, if you are just still using it to kill a ghoul, like, that's a really nice thing. The once used per turn always turns me off. I think that's very fair of an assessment. However, if you think about it, like, if you're using it as like an offhand for like lockpicking, you're only investigating once for a big burst anyway. If you're using it as an offhand for fighting, like say for example with like a sledgehammer or a machete, just getting like an extra one, like an extra +1 on what you're trying to kill with is good. I think ultimately it is going to be a holdover until you get the upgraded versions, right? But I still think it is pretty good. Ethereal Slip. Choose a non-elite enemy at a revealed location up to 2 connections away. Swap places with that enemy. Huzzah! I am the magic. Man, there's so many cards. These are long videos. And I haven't had my lunch yet. I have leftover pizza for lunch, so that's going to be pretty sick. Okay. Ethereal Slip. Choose a non-elite enemy at a revealed location up to 2 connections away. Swap locations with that enemy. We have an upgraded version as well, which is choose a non-elite enemy at any revealed location. Swap places. I hit my wall, and this damn Dexter with his magic angel wings have done it for me. Oh, it's a Byakuya. It's on his head. Oh, man. I think I'm going to put both of these cards in, like, won't move the needle, but is technically playable. And I don't really know a reason for how to explain it, other than the fact that you'll know when you play them. Where, like, they'll do good things, right? Like, they'll do things that are good. But it's never, like, you're going to end up, like, find out they're going to end up committing it more often a lot, too, right? Like, you're just going to be like, I guess I'm going to commit this to this brain test because I can't see the situation. Like, it's going to get better when you get more investigators who can split up, right? But even then, like, I think it's just a little bit, it's going to work occasionally, but more often than not, you're going to find yourself committing it. Yeah, no, I think it's a fair point, too, from Zoltar, that it'll scale better. If you have a higher player count, it also might go up a tier as well, because you're going to be stretching your collection that much thinner. Yeah, also nice at Midnight Masks. Yeah. I think there's a lot of use cases that it's like going to be like a really nice thing where it's going to work, but I still think, again, once you play with it, you'll be like, oh, it works less than I thought it did. I also am now mad that the flavor text doesn't like carry over into the next one. All right. If Blur has charges remaining, this is Blur, by the way. This is the evade one of the cycle. If it has charges remaining in evade, for the evasion tip, you may use Brain instead of Foot, and you get +1 skill value. If you succeed, spend 1 charge. You may take an additional action this turn. If you succeed by 0, take 1 damage. So, I generally don't like evasion spells. With that said, I actually really like Blur. Ezekiel Abaddon, 16 months, Prime. That's for next year's Norman's S rating. You know what? I appreciate it. I appreciate the down payment for next year's tier list. I really like Blur because it gives you those extra actions. And I really like Blur 4 because it gives you even more of those extra actions. I think Blurs are very good evasion spells, and this is coming from a guy who doesn't like evasion spells, who also just generally doesn't like evading. I really like the ability to take an extra action, so you can like potentially get out of the evade lock, or like build for the next turn when you're more ready to fight the enemy, or just even like leave the enemy there. I think they're very nice, and also only costing 2 resources is really nice. I think they're great cards. They're very good. Hit me. Okay, chat, I gotta be honest with you, I hate this card. I actually don't think it's good, but everyone else has told me it's good, and I don't like this card. I don't like it. But I'm gonna try to be... I'm gonna try, because the reality is that every time I've played this card, it hasn't caused me to play Lucky. And you already have Lucky in your core set. So, like, why would I play bad Lucky when I can play good Lucky? So, hit me. Fast play after you reveal a Chaos token during a skill test. Reveal an additional Chaos token, switching its minus to a plus. If that token is a Skull token, you may automatically fail. I'm going to put this in won't move the needle, but is playable. I think there is reasons to take it out of your binder, right? And in a small collection, if you just need like something to be in your level 0 deck, it's going to be playable and it's going to work, right? But the card is not good. You cannot rely on it. It will betray you, and it will make you have trust issues. And you won't be able to move past it, and your therapist is going to be like, stop saying hit me, because multiple reasons. Yeah, so I'm going to put it there. Unscrupulous Loan, I think this is just a good card, right? I think even just beyond the big money deck that we saw with Black Fan and Money Talks, just having a way to mainline 10 resources into your veins, right? Like, that is kind of sick. And like, you can go different approaches with it, right? You can like, I'm going to spend 3 experience going into this scenario, and then I'm going to spend that 3 experience again going into the scenario just for a big surge of money because I'm a survivor deck and my deck's done. Or you go the rogue approach, which is I'm going to hoard my big money, right? It's kind of really cool where I think this is one of the most successful designs, at least from a flavor standpoint. I don't know from a function standpoint of the survivor versus rogue, but like being able to encapsulate the 2 play styles I think is really cool. But I don't know, like, sorry, I guess from the function standpoint it's good. From the flavor standpoint, I don't really get it on the survivor side. But like from a function standpoint, I think this is a really nice version of how these 2 classes play with the same card differently. Yeah, very cool. Okay, we have the Precious Mementos. If Bryn was here, he would want me to say, the cool thing about this is even their commit icons have switched between the 2. So we have Former and Future Life, which is a 3/3 on each of them. And they each have an effect of limit 1 per of their subtitle in play. So you can have both in play if you have Relic Hunter, which you do get in the core set. After you fail a skill test by 2 or more, exhaust the Memento, heal a horror. And after you pass by 2 or more, heal a damage. And it's flipped for the other ones, right? Really cool cards, and I think they're both, like, good. Yeah, I think they're both good. Unless you're building around both of them, which you can do. It's a very fun deck. I did it with Tony Morgan, and I was an unkillable god, and no one could kill me, and I was unkillable. I was a god. It was great. You're probably just going to take one of them, right? Because it's basically just like drip healing over time. It's a very nice effect. You're going to trigger it. It is kind of like a prototype Gurish for sure. I think these cards are like good and playable, and you're probably just going to need one of them. You can buy both of them and just like go for it, but you're going to probably grab the one that you're more likely to heal the one that you need. So the one that you're more likely to succeed by 2, you're going to take the one that you have the lower pool of those to get through. I think they're nice, though. Talisman of Protection, honestly, I'm going to actually throw this one and will make an immediate impact. I think this card is actually really good. In a small collection especially, but I think it's also really good in a big collection. Talisman of Protection has a lot of good things going for it, and the main thing is that it's fast. Like, that's the most important part of this card. What this card does is it's... you play it under control of any investigator, play only during your turn, and when you would be assigned damage that would defeat you, or horror that would defeat you, you discard Talisman of Protection, cancel up to that damage and or horror. I think this card's just like really nice. I don't generally like cards that you have to like hold in hand to like prevent death. So having it be like in play and it can just vibe there, and so I can play riskier. Like, what the biggest thing is, like, generally the riskier you play, the quicker you win. That's kind of like the philosophy behind playing risky, right? And this allows you to play very risky. And even like the idea of like, I don't know if you're being, if you're poo-pooing on the idea of this being a fast crypt chill fodder. I'll take honestly, if I'm not close to dying, I'll take this as a ward of protection for crypt chill and protect my Cyclopean Hammer, right? I think it is like a very good card. I think it'll go down. Like, I think like in the future, it'll like drop down here as you get more cards into like one of these 2 tiers. But I think in a small collection, again, anything that stops a new player from playing First Aid Kit is a good card for their collection, right? Stop playing First Aid Kit if you have. No, it's actually good. Yeah, I figured. That's why I was assuming that you were like, you weren't being poo-pooing it, because it is really nice to have like some, like, just like this form of cheap protection can be really good in multiple ways. And it being fast is insane. Play actions are wasted actions. Amen. All we need are skills to commit to our investigates and our fight actions. All right, I've been talking about Earthly Serenity for a while as some more good healing. So this one is kind of like the other ones, where you test, and then for each point you succeed by, you can, well, it's like you spend charges to do the things. How these ones work is you do a brain test, 1 on the level 1 version, and 0 on the level 4 version. And then for each point you succeed by, you may spend a charge to heal 1 damage or 1 harm for an investigator at your location. And if you succeed by 0, lose 2 resources. Healing, while much better here, is still something that you don't want to look at doing too much. I'm going to put these in the good cards. It is very good burst healing, right? Like being able to, like, the problem with First Aid Kit is that it's so slow, right? The thing about Earthly Serenity that's really nice is that you can do big burst healing to like help out the team as needed and not spend a lot of actions doing it. Drip healing is good if it happens without you needing to do anything. Burst healing is better when you're actually actively spending the actions to do it. Oh, sorry, wrong way. Oh no, right way. I was going the right way. Look at me. All right, then we got Enchanted Bow. I always need to read this card. Give me a second. It's a 3-cost 2 experience Mystic Survivor card. Takes up 2 hand slots and a spell slot, arcane slot if you're naughty. Uses 3 charge as an action. Exhaust Enchanted Bow. Fight. You must use either willpower or agility instead of combat and get +1 skill value for this attack. If the attack deals +1 damage, it's just a cost to initiate this ability. You may spend 1 charge to have this attack target a non-elite enemy in a connected location. If you do, ignore the aloof keyword. So you get 1 fight action a turn. Honestly, this is probably pretty good for Agnes, right? Like, it's probably just really nice for her to have. Who's the other person that can run it? Normie or Daniela? I'll put this in playable. It won't move the needle, but it's playable. I could see me running this in Agnes with an addition to into a kill spell to be kind of a combat Agnes. Or like a flex Agnes with clue cards. Yeah, I think this is playable. I don't think it's great. It just takes up so many slots, which I think is fair to fit with the flavor of the card. But I don't know. I'm curious like how it would work if it was like came in with like 5 charges. And like you just spent the charge no matter what, but it dealt more damage. I don't know. And it seems like one of those cards that, unfortunately, is just a little bit too reined in. But yeah, it definitely has places you get bigger too. Definitely. I think it's a fine card top to bottom, no matter how you shake it. Okay. We're on the last 3 cards, the tricolors. These are really nice if you're doing synergy. They're very nice if you're doing synergy. I'm going to kind of sum them all up, and we're going to kind of like batch put them out, okay? So, Prophetic. Sorry, let's do all of them. So they're all going to come in with 2 resources, and you always replenish these resources at the start of the round. These resources can be used to play or boost 3 traits on each of them. Prophetic, which is, and they're all 3 cost 3 experience. Prophetic, which is Guardian, Mystic, Survivor, which is Fortune, Spell, or Spirit. This one is going to be the one that's most playable out of the gate, and I'm actually going to just put this into this good card, good deck slot filler. I think this is the good one here. It has that same sort of issue that Grounded does, where so the nice thing is that these are economy, which is very good. But it has that issue with Grounded where unless you have proxied that arcane research, as I mentioned earlier, from the Forgotten Age, experience is going to be a little bit harder. The spell one's really nice because the cards, like there's a lot of these traits in here. However, before let's actually just talk about this. Sleuth, Charms, Tactic, Tome. Nice and daisy, but still probably not going to do much. We have Bruiser, armor, firearm, and melee. This one's also probably pretty playable right as it is. Crafty, insight, tool, or trick. Probably not with the card pool you have here. Like, it might help with your lockpicks, because I'm pretty sure that's a tool. Not too much. Can also, I mean, work with like paying for your... I mean, it can work paying for your ice picks, so there's kind of like something that you can work right there. And then there's Antiquary, the other one, which is favor, relic, or rituals. So the other kind of issue with these cards is they're kind of just win more, right? Like, they don't actually like do anything. They kind of just like help you win better. So if you're not winning and you draw one, you're kind of like, oh shoot. I'm gonna put Antiquary and won't leave the binder. I'm gonna put Sleuth in won't move the needle but playable. I'm gonna put Bruiser in good card, good deck slot filler, because these both help both weapons and spells, which are just kind of like how you're gonna be doing things in a small collection. And then as for Crafty, I kind of like it with the... I mean, it also works for Sledgehammer. You know what? I'll put this in good card. I'll put it in good. I will. I think I'll put it in good. I think there's enough pieces here, especially on the scavenging side, that I think it's good enough. I'm so mad that Antiquary doesn't pay for protective incantations upkeep. It should. What about your teaching? 1R is no resource. That's true. That is true. But if you're playing 2 scavengings and you want to play multiple ice picks a turn, Crafty's going to help you do that, which could happen. Like, if you get 2 scavengings and you can just like kill, play, like, it can be really nice for that. All right, in the thick of it. This is going to make an immediate impact on your collection. And you know what? I think you should start playing with it immediately. It's very powerful. Don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. What this card does is you purchase it at deck creation. When you purchase in the thick of it, suffer 2 total physical and or mental trauma, then earn 3 experience. I think I'm allergic to something. I had a rash on my hand this morning that's just started going down. I noticed it yesterday too. I've been looking at it all video whenever I need a break to gather my thoughts. So why In the Thick of It is so good is because 3 experience lets you get things started. Really nice because you can buy like the level 1 Brandicathugas and like this and Mystics. You can also just like buy the things you need, right? So like basically these 1 experience cards that we've been talking about this whole time are basically becoming in your level 0 deck, which is really, really nice. In the Thick of It is a very powerful card. At this point, I kind of have to talk myself out of taking it as opposed to talk myself into taking it. I can understand as a new player being worried about the trauma, but as we saw, there's a lot of good drip. Like that's like I said earlier with medical student, you can just like negate it, which is really nice. Just have her in your opening hand and just negate you're in the thick of it. And also the reality is that as you get better, you'll find that this trauma actually doesn't slow you down. Heavy Furs. Well, that's really deep. Thick is just, in the thick of it is just a scenario 0 you lost. Yeah, 100%. I love that line of thought. Heavy Furs. 2 cost, 2 soak for damage. As a reaction, after you reveal a non-autofill symbol on a chaos token during a skill test you're performing, deal 1 damage to Heavy Furs, cancel that chaos token, return to the bag, and reveal a new chaos token. Notably, numbers aren't symbols. This only works for symbols. I think this won't move the needle, but is entirely playable. Sled Dog! My curse. My curse, because it makes Travis so angry, so Bryn just keeps running it. I think I might have talked Bryn into playing a Lola Sled Dogs deck. No, Chad, I'm sorry, this is leaving the binder. I'm sorry, it is. I know new players, they're going to want, I know old players, they're going to want to play Sled Dogs. They're going to want to play him, so he's going to leave the binder. He's gonna. But the question is he actually going to leave the binder in my assessment of what these cards do? Should he leave the binder? And I think the reality is you just don't have the pieces for it in this one. Calling in Favors, is that in Dunwich or Carcosa? There's some cards that help this become more reliable. You really need to get someone who can play allies for cheaper, like Leo Anderson, or someone who can like recur allies, like good old Will York. But notably, they're not great. I'm going to put this in won't leave the binder for sure. But you'll have fun playing them, and that's good. They'll get better as you get better, and I think they're actually as legitimate sled dog decks you can build. I don't think it's a coincidence that Leo Anderson was one half of my limited collection run through Innsmouth when I got all the keys, and he was a sled dog deck. Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think they are playable and can do good. They are just very swingy, and they require a lot of cards to get there. On that note, Rod of Animalism is also going to live in there because it's kind of just like a companion card to Sled Dogs. It exists because Sled Dog exists, and vice versa. We need more creatures, I think, to make it a little bit more viable, too. At least on, like, the Spike side of thing. I think it's there with the Johnny side, but, you know. Charlie Kane loves some doggos, if I remember Eric correctly. Yeah, Eric had a great time with that deck. Last card for here, which actually was a card we spoiled, which is Call for Backup. This is a 1-cost, 2 experience favor synergy card. One at a time in any order. If you control a rogue card, you may move to a connecting location. Guardian card, deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. Seeker card, discover 1 clue at your location. Mystic card, heal a horror from any card. Survivor card, heal a damage from any card. I actually think this card is pretty alright. I think, though, I'm going to put it in won't move the needle, but playable. Just due to the nature of... just like the synergy payoff being a little bit harder, and it's not as directly powerful as some of the other synergy cards that we put up here, right? So I think it's still better, and I think this card, like, in a synergy deck, if you're not playing Call for Backup, what the heck are you doing? I think it's actually, like, super viable in a synergy deck, and it actually, like, gets the job done. I hope we see synergy again. I was hoping for it in Drowned City, but alas, my prediction was incorrect. But, yeah. I think it's pretty playable. Okay, that is the tier list. I mean, it's not really a tier list. It's a... And I analyzed where all these fell in all this. There is a link in the video description if you want to go check out the list on the image of it on our Patreon page for free. You don't need to join to view that. Anytime I share one of these in tandem with a list video, it's always, or a tier list, it's always for free. Don't worry about that. But if you do want to stay on the Patreon, I would really appreciate it. Notably, a lot of cards here that make an immediate impact. I want to compare this to Dunwich just out of curiosity. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, I could just make this big here. That one. Actually, on par with Dunwich for that kind of stuff. The Won't Leave the Binder, also pretty close. I mean, honestly, that kind of makes sense. The thing, though, unlike Dunwich, where a lot of their Won't Leave the Binders are actually kind of like always going to be not leave the binders, a lot of these are going to improve as you get more, right? Like, all of the permanents, they're going to improve. This one's going to go up to make an immediate impact very soon. I think it's just missing like that little bit to really make it like really pop off. And like even like the Geared Up will, the Underworld Support slowly will, this will, like, you know, like I think there's a lot of stuff there that'll get through it and make it pop. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to thank a big shout out to the person in the comments who said, hey, you should maybe not do these in order and do Edge of the Earth next. I thought that was a great idea. And honestly, I might actually just roll the dice to see where I'm going next after this. Like maybe I'll do like Hemlock because it's the newest one, but there's going to be more of these. So keep your eye for them. I hope this helps all you new players. I really appreciate you watching this video and everyone who joined me on chat for this almost 3 hours. Holy hell, I am starving. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.